professional. Yo, goddamn it. You're muted, what? Endearing, it's iconic. Cheese breaks, fade breaks, staying hydrated. It's shorty time. She's a fucking delight. Trial watching, trials and tribulations. It's Camp Shorty calling all nations. What are you drinking? Shall we skip this part? Left or right-handed? Shit, she slid it to the start. She's a fucking professional. Yo, goddamn it. You're muted, what? Endearing, it's iconic. Cheese breaks, fade breaks, staying hydrated. It's shorty time. She's a fucking delight. Psychology corner. Let's learn about stuff. New Miss Shorty music. Calling their bluff. Best chat, best community. We've got the best mods. A safe, supportive sanctuary full of fun and love. Rock out with your cats out. Curse all you want. And here at Camp Shorty, we even say cunt. She's a fucking professional. Yo, goddamn it. You're muted, what? Endearing, it's iconic. Cheese breaks, fade breaks, staying hydrated. It's shorty time. She's a fucking delight. Hey, shorties, what's doing, y'all? Get in here, shorties. Let's fucking go. Camp Shorty. Camp Shorty. Camp Shorty. Camp Shorty.
Yow! Hi. Thanks. Wild. There's only one of me again, but now there's no Joey. Oh my God. Where's Joey gone? Thanks for being here, y'all. That was weird. But anyway, we're professionals. I don't know if any of you remember the early days where I had streams where for the entire stream, I sounded like a robot. And every 5 minutes or so, about 30 minutes worth of robot, it was a whole thing when I streamed off my phone. Oh, interviews. Oh, torture. We can deal. Much better. Yes. Perfect sound. There was no way to boot one of me out of the studio. So I couldn't X out of anything. I tried everything in that other one. So here we are. Yay! Matilda. Yay! See, we're still here. Yes, spread the word. So, take 2. Setting boundaries. That's what we're going to talk about tonight. This time, this level of Camp Shorty. So in life, it's tough to set boundaries. It can be tough. It takes some practice. It takes letting go of caring or worrying what other people think. Because most people, in my experience, aren't hugely proficient or comfortable with setting boundaries even for themselves. Setting boundaries with other people can prove to be excruciating, impossible even. People pleasers tend to have a lot of problems or struggle with setting boundaries. You can be conditioned when you're sort of asserting yourself and what is okay or not okay. And it can be anything like, for example, reacts on your phone. Like you can hit the heart on Facebook, hit the heart, hit the ha-ha, hit the whatever. Hitting a thumbs up to me is a hard no. Thumbs up suggests it's the same as just saying K. or a thumbs up reply. Thumbs up to me is quite passive aggressive, particularly if the dynamic of the communications between the two people is heart things, heart. As soon as someone thumbs up things, to me, I know it's not it's a Lisa problem. I'm like, ooh, I don't like that. So I'll say straight away to the person, rather than cringing and feeling highly uncomfortable with that thumbs up react, I'll say, hey, could we please never use the thumbs up? Could we use any other of the reacts? It just grates on me, makes me feel like there's an issue when there probably isn't. It's me. But I just say it, and I explain about it. And generally, if the person is uh, well adjusted emotionally and not a little baby bitch boy or girl, and understands that it's not a big deal, and I've explained why I wasn't a cunt about it, excuse my language, they'll go, yeah, cool, no worries, I'll take that on board. That's setting a really small boundary. It's a small boundary. It's just saying what like my cleavage is out of alignment with the V of my top. Hang on, sorry, distracting, probably for you too. So that's a very small boundary, but could also be like sexual boundaries, boundaries at work. Accommodations are part of boundaries. Excuse me. So, hi, Colors. Good to see you. Thank you all for coming back. I'm sorry about those wilding shit. It was a callback to the olden days of early days of Camp Shorty, or it was before there was even Camp Shorty. It was just, hi, I'm Miss Shorty. Lol. So we've got a bit of Dr. Ramani to watch, right? Ambiguous, yes, and ambiguity is not great either. Clearly defined, firmly asserted, kind, reasonable boundaries are it's it. That's it for me. It's everything. And I am more than willing and able, after much practice and much letting go of people pleasing. Like I still want for people to not be displeased with me, but not if it's at the sake of my own sense of well-being and comfort. So once you are able and feel comfortable and confident to set boundaries, and you can test the waters, and it starts with setting boundaries for yourself, I believe. So saying, I don't know, like a boundary could be, I'm not going to I was going to say I'm not going to drink wine every night, but that's a boundary I'm not willing. That's a bridge too far. God damn it. I don't know. They're basically rules, right? They're little or big rules. That rules of the game. You know, like what's okay, what's not okay. What's okay with me might not be an issue for or might be what I require to feel comfortable and good in my world, in my surroundings, might be inconsequential to another person. Or it might be, like, to quote Nick Francis, not a deal breaker, just like to know, thanks. So some things might be deal breakers, and if you don't assert those boundaries, if you don't articulate them, how can the other person know? And if you don't articulate those boundaries to yourself, how are you ever going to sort of set and then maintain those boundaries with others? So that timely manner. My boundary is the Pacific Ocean. There it is. That, yes. Oh, Joey, take the wheel. So how about we get going? Because Dr. Ramani will say it far more articulately, succinctly, and professionally than I can say it, and I'll just chime in. So thank you so much for being here. Cheryl says, I'll be back. I'll be back. Here, what are we doing? Sharing screen. Yikes. Oh my God, there's even fucking 2 StreamYards. What the fuck? Hold up now. What have I done here? Get rid of that. Stressful. Number 1 boundary, don't be a cunt. Simples. Right. I like that. Agreed. But what's one person's definition of a cunt might well be not someone else's definition. So someone might say to me, let's go back to that thumbs up react thing. They might be like, what the fuck, Lisa? What does it matter if I say use the thumbs up? Who do you think you are to dictate what reacts I can use? And I'll be like, yeah, well, what does it matter really? It matters to me. And like, you're really going to dig in on that? And people often will feel like boundaries asserted and established are controlling. And I had a big light bulb moment about this, and we'll come to this. We've got 3 videos to watch. I'll link them in the description box of this new live stream. But Dr. Ramani, I realize that people often when I assert my boundaries, big or small, quite often my lived experience is that people will be like, nah, not doing it. Not abiding by your rules. Who do you think you are to establish those rules? And the friendship or the dynamic of that relationship, whatever it is, becomes a little fractured because, in my opinion, those people aren't good with setting boundaries for themselves, and so feel uncomfortable when someone else is willing and able to set boundaries. And you've got to do it kindly. You can't be a fuckwit. So let's watch the first of the videos. It's a longer one. It's the longest. We have wait, let me just check because I better check first. There's 3. One's an hour, one's 20, excuse me, 20 minutes. This one, I think it's the first one. So we have Dr. Ramani. We love Dr. Ramani. It's the first one. Cool.
I'm well.
Oh, no, Joey, it's on a loop.
Well.
Save us.
I'm well.
My bad. Well, I'm well. Exactly. God, exactly, Higgy. This one, setting boundaries with narcissists. So the title is setting boundaries with narcissists. It doesn't have to be with narcissists. It's a general thing. Dr. Ramani's channel is focused around dealing with narcissists, and that's her advice. But we can swap out narcissists with assholes, toxic people, or just in general. It's just that with narcissists, and we all come across these kind of folk in our lives daily on all sorts of platforms and arenas. But Dr. Ramani talks about it relating to narcissists, one of the hardest words for me to say, and I love that I get to say it all the time. So I'll say hi to people properly now once we get this video going. I was a bit flustered there.
When your boundaries are observed, you setting boundaries is observed by a narcissistic person, they will likely tell you that you're being controlling. And obviously that's a bit of a projection.
There it is. I'll slow it down. I had it on 1.25. I'll put it on 1.1 if it's too fast. We'll slow it
The
down.
term we're going to talk about is boundaries. But as always, before I get to that, I always welcome you to please hit the key here to subscribe to this channel, hit the bell to get notifications, and that will keep you abreast of, actually, we're putting out more content than ever, let you know new content when it comes out to get that notification. So let's talk.
Yes, Dr. Ramani. Now, Simi says, I'm so honest, and even if I say it in a nice way, people sure don't like hearing truths, but yet expect honesty. I just accept that being honest sometimes means I'm a bit of an asshole sometimes. I don't think that it's being an asshole. I think that people are so unused to being truthful with themselves about things. There's a lot of toxic positivity and rug sweeping that people, it's human nature to avoid uncomfortable stuff, to avoid discomfort, to avoid having difficult conversations. And so if you're trying to go in that, not you, Simi, but if someone is avoiding uncomfortable and difficult conversations and uncomfortable feelings, whether it's about themselves, people, it's human nature to avoid stuff that makes us feel icky. So if people are not honest with themselves, their happiness, their realities, whatever, their choices, their personality, their deep core, everything, then they're not going to appreciate or feel comfortable with others being honest. And so my goal, big time, is to get people to feel more comfortable with being honest with themselves, so that then they can accept honesty when it's coming towards them. And I can't imagine you, Simi, being a bit of an asshole. I mean, there's times when we have to be firm with people, but you seem like a really quite lovely person. The problem is it's a them problem, but it's a society problem, in my opinion. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a mental health professional. I'm just someone who's done a lot of soul searching, spent a lot of time learning about myself so I can more successfully and comfortably and peacefully navigate through my life. And I think if we all start to be comfortable with difficult conversations with ourselves and with others, then we're going to get rid of some of this like headbutting on this stuff. People are just like, I'm out. Well, okay, that's a you choice. That's not me. And you know. So, Dr. Ramani, let's listen to her pearlers.
Talk about boundaries. So let's start with a question. What is a boundary? You think about it, it's a fence, it's a border, it's a wall, it's a fortress.
Ruthie's here.
But I'm
Hi,
talking about
Ruthie.
psychological boundaries. And since we're talking about a psychological concept, those things are metaphors. But what do they really mean? What does it mean to have boundaries? It's sort of the major psychological buzzword of our time. But the fact is, a lot of people aren't always clear about what boundaries are. Psychological boundaries are sort of rules. In their simplest forms, these could be rules about
Nick or anybody, I'll try to go through, and maybe Joey, if you see any, I'll star some comments and questions and stuff to hopefully come round to it, perhaps in a natural break in the video or between the videos, rather than break the flow, because you know me, easily sidetracked. But I'll address this one now. Are your boundaries me? Hard no, non-negotiables? Joey, are your boundaries hard no, non-negotiables, or do you adapt depending on the circumstances? Well, it depends how much it affects me. Me personally, I have some things that I am flexible about, but usually setting boundaries, I'm going to stick to my guns, man. At risk of like even in the last couple of months, I've had to set some and assert and maintain some really firm, clear boundaries that have been terrifying for me. I wrote a song about it. It's called Unfuckwithable, The Fray, and it starts off with brave but scared. And that song was entirely written because I was terrified about the fact that I knew I had to set a particular boundary with a particular person or a couple of people that was not going to be received well, because our history was that my boundaries, no matter in what arena or how I articulated them, how I role modeled those behaviors I was hoping to elicit from that person, no matter whether I said it privately, publicly, one-on-one, in a group setting, the boundaries were not respected. It made a big difference to me. But so there are times, and Dr. Ramani will talk about it. So some things you're not gonna die on a hill about a thumbs up, right? A thumbs up react. You're just not, Nick. I'm not sure if you heard the start of that when I talked about that. But that's a pattern. Like if I set a boundary to someone and say, "Hey, I don't love the thumbs up. I'm letting you know why." I know you weren't being passive aggressive with it. I know you weren't being a snarky cunt, but it makes me feel like that, and I'd rather not. So if we can avoid it, make an accommodation where we don't use the thumbs up react, that'd work for me. Does that work for you? If that other person goes, I'm still going to use it, or just still uses it, or gets pissed off and kind of sulky about it, well, that suggests to me that if I'm articulating and asserting a very inconsequential boundary, that when we get to more important boundaries, they're probably not going to respect them either, right? And then that's a hard no for me. Boundaries are important. Everybody should have like a respect for other people and understand other people's needs. And that's what boundaries are about. Needs to make our wouldn't we all like for everybody in the world to be as comfortable as possible within their life? I don't mean financially comfortable. I mean how they feel about their world and the people around them and how people treat them and how they treat people. So if another person in my life doesn't give a fuck, the thumbs up makes me feel icky, well, I don't want them in my life. And I guarantee you'll find it's harder and harder and harder to assert those boundaries if you don't start with just testing the waters with little ones. And I'm not trying to control the other person. I'm just trying to see, like, I care what you, other person, how you feel. If there's something I do or say that makes you feel uncomfortable and icky, let me know and I'll work on it, unless it's unreasonable. And if someone said to me, please don't use the thumbs up, and I felt very strongly about only ever thumbs up things, I'd probably go, nah, we're not the right fit for each other. When we're not going to work, we have different ideas of what's cool. All that to say, Dr. Ramani, Thanks. She'll say it better, guaranteed.
Appropriate times to call someone or text someone, or are you allowed to just show up at their house, or do they expect you to call first? And they make that clear. It can be the kinds of topics you talk about, politics, or some people may view sex as an unacceptable or uncomfortable topic and feel that to talk about your sex
Hi,
life
Jay.
would be
Good to see
violating
you.
a boundary. Boundaries around other kinds of language may also exist. For example, I don't know, sharing information about a salary or a bank balance may be considered violating a boundary. But boundaries can also be physical, and that could be things about whether you hug someone when you greet them, how close you sit to them, whether you can touch them in any way whatsoever, whether you were to sleep in a bed next to them, whether you would ever dream of sharing a bed with them.
She's still a bit
But these are
fast.
sorts of
I'm slowing her
easy
down.
boundaries to understand when they're physical or words people say. You can see them, you can hear them,
Better.
and in that
Sorry,
way,
chat. That was too
you
fast.
can govern them. But boundaries get a lot more complicated when it starts getting into subtle psychological territory. A nonverbal gesture may feel uncomfortable for someone. A topic that to many people may seem normative may actually feel traumatic or offensive for other people to talk about. It may even relate to the volume or pitch of your voice or the tone of your voice. So, in a way, boundaries can feel like rules, like having to stop at a stop sign, or wait in line at a store, or saying please and thank you. Those are easy rules to understand that get communicated by, I don't know, signs hanging on the wall. Like, for example, a sign saying wait in line, or laws that tell us that if you don't stop at a stop sign, you're going to get a ticket, or by society telling us we need to say thank you and please as a part of basic manners. And they're really clear. But that doesn't mean that people always follow even those rules. Now, not following those rules can result in some form of penalty, a fine or social disapproval, but the rules are clear. Our psychological boundaries.
No, we're not going to roast the doctor, DEI hire. We love Dr. Ramani here at Camp Shorty. So if you don't, I mean, maybe this live stream isn't for you. No, we're not roasting Dr. Ramani at all. Thanks. I appreciate if you would respect that boundary. Bless.
Aren't. We don't have signs in our homes or signs taped to our foreheads listing what we consider to
Hi,
be
Jane. Good to see you, darling.
appropriate boundaries. So it all becomes an interesting dance. When someone violates those boundaries, whatever they are, we can tell them, and ideally in a healthy relationship, they will acknowledge those boundary violations and shift the behavior. But think about it. How many times when someone has violated or stepped on a boundary of yours, did you really communicate clearly with them at the time they made the boundary violation? So many of us have been socialized or learned over time to keep quiet, to work around it, to not make such a big deal about it. And then it means that our boundaries may get violated over and over and over again. But we don't feel empowered to try to change the situation. We just don't feel like we have permission to do so. And we may not have been given the skills to do so. Now, for some things, like a person giving too many details than you want to hear about a one-night stand, we may be able to shrug it off and say, ugh, whatever. But what about the bigger ticket stuff?
Exactly. Ruthie, I am very careful, even very careful about what I comment on social media. I don't want something coming after lol, someone coming after lol. So maybe I haven't changed as much as I thought. Social media boundaries are very important. And most people on social media, in my experience, don't respect boundaries at all. And in fact, see social media as a place where there are no boundaries and that no one has a right to have boundaries. We'll get to that. Nobody wants to be attacked on social media though, right, Ruthie? At all.
Stuff. For example, when a person speaks poorly or negatively about issues or people or aspirations that we care dearly about, or when a person keeps foisting more work on you little by little by little, either at work or at home, or when a person keeps baiting you and gaslighting you and manipulating you, that starts to get into much more complicated territory of this complicated issue called boundaries. This isn't just about turning your phone off at 9 p.m. or telling people to not call you. So here is where boundaries get really tricky. We cannot control other people. We can only manage ourselves. Many times people do not agree or respect the boundaries we have, yet they may still talk about their uncomfortable topics. They may keep baiting us. They may keep invalidating us. And they may keep saying and doing inappropriate and disrespectful things. What do we do then? The rules of the world at large work because there are often real consequences that follow when those rules get broken. The same thinking, though, could be applied to boundaries. Maybe that people would change their behavior if there were real consequences. But that gets tricky in the world of narcissism. For a start, narcissists and difficult personalities usually don't follow rules. They often don't even follow the laws. And they generally don't believe rules apply to them. Their entitlement, grandiosity, and arrogance all mean that they believe rules are for other people, and they flout those rules and get really enraged when they are held to the same standard as everyone else. And in fact, I am a firm believer that the myriad nitpicky rules and laws our society is required to have largely come down to having to keep the narcissist at bay.
I put closed captions on. Thank you, Amber, for suggesting that. I'm sorry that it's not a bit bigger. Wait, let me see if I can stop screen and make it bigger. I can't remember. I'll present it back. Give me a second because she's a bit small, Dr. Ramani, and she's big. We want her big so we can see her and read her words as well. So remember, we don't have to necessarily think about this as with narcissists, although they're the extremes. Narcissists, assholes, toxic people, but in general, now is it back to that other size? No, I don't know how to get it back. Wait, is this one bigger? That's bigger, isn't it? Let me check. Yes, boom, I'm higher, but that's okay. That's fine, at least you can see her. All right, it doesn't matter where I am. God, okay, let's go. Boom. Better.
The rest of us are willing to play by the rules because, in fact, we respect the people around us. So if they aren't willing to follow rules and laws, do you really think that they're going to respect your personal boundaries, especially given their contempt for relationships? Probably not. So our unwillingness or our inability to set boundaries with narcissists results in all of us enabling them. Just like when they run the stop sign, over time, the tickets and the penalties may stop them from doing it, not because they believe they should have to stop at a stop sign, but because they don't want to pay a fee. They don't even believe they have to pay, but they want to keep driving. But most of us don't set boundaries like that with narcissists. Why not?
Wait, one more thing.
Why do so many of us have so much trouble setting boundaries with narcissists?
Because they eat you fucking alive. One more thing. Replay crew, hi, thank you for being here. After the fact, if you'd like to watch the chat as a live chat replay and you're on your handheld device like a mobile or a tablet or something, there is a way. Just go to the comments tab of the video, and instead of tapping on it, swipe left and you will get the option for live chat replay instead. Sorry, I should have mentioned that earlier. Carry on, Dr. Ramani. Oh, dirty paws. She's got such an expressive face that it's hard to get her on a still, serene facial expression. Love. 10-10, Dr. Ramani.
For reasons that are both understandable and also difficult. For one thing, many of you may not fully understand narcissism and actually believe that all people will hear you when you tell them something, or they'll register the hurt feelings on your face, or they will be able to benefit from social cues and catch themselves. Nope. That is not happening with narcissistic individuals ever. They are not able to self-govern. They are not able to self-regulate. So that is not an option. Secondly, many of us are uncomfortable with conflict. And add to that the fact that many of us have our own struggles with being enough and even feeling like we have the right to set and enforce our own boundaries. We gaslight ourselves and may say, maybe I'm being too sensitive. Maybe it's not that big a deal. Maybe it's me. Maybe I just need to learn to compromise. Third, you may be so accustomed to poor boundaries from your families of origin that the concept of setting boundaries literally feels foreign to you. And if you did try to do it in your family, you would have been unheard, unseen, mocked, and the boundary violations would continue or maybe even get worse. In addition,
So I guess this could be a trigger warning, and I probably should have already warned you, but trigger warning, chat. Let me drop it in the chat if I get a second. Hopefully I get it before you get the trigger. If you have family trauma where perhaps boundaries were a problem, and if this feels a little bit uncomfortable for you, I'm sorry. Maybe take a moment, step away, mute it for a little bit. Thank you, Princey. Yes. Take care of yourself. If it's a little much, come back. We'll save you a seat or not. But she doesn't talk about family, lack of family boundaries for that long. And it's interwoven throughout. So if you can kind of la, 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 while she's talking about that stuff, if it's a little bit too much for you, that might work for you.
for those with histories of trauma, particularly early life trauma, physical, sexual, or other abuse during childhood, setting and maintaining boundaries becomes an even greater struggle because those boundaries were violated in such a profound way, and the concept of boundaries can remain confusing. Trauma work addressing this becomes absolutely essential. And with narcissists, the sad issue becomes that even if you push through all of these barriers and communicate appropriately, communicate directly, and communicate clearly, it probably won't work. Remember that they don't even want to stop at the stop sign or wait in the line at the coffee shop. They already devalue you. Do you really think that your boundaries are going to be heard by them? Probably not. And that is where it gets really toxic. It may have taken superhuman effort, therapy, anything you could have done to even summon up the courage to talk about boundaries. Or you may actually be good and able to talk about boundaries and actually did it and saw that very little changed. And in fact, the narcissist became quite defensive. And then they turned the entire conversation back on you with lots of gaslighting, manipulation, and other abuse. Many therapists do not build an understanding of narcissism into their work with those living in narcissistic relationships. So the guidance to set and enforce boundaries is just really mental health common sense. But telling you to set boundaries with a narcissist is like throwing you into a cage with a tiger.
So I'm going to pause there for Dr. Ramani just for a moment. That's quite a lovely dirty pause. No dirty about it, just serenity. Again, I'm going to stress that this doesn't necessarily have to be about hardline, extreme, diagnosable narcissists. Some people just don't like boundaries and they can treat you really poorly when you assert them, particularly when it's something that they have patterns of behavior about that are deeply entrenched in their life. It's just how I am, they might say. So it can be terrifying to try to, I'm speaking from experience, can be terrifying to assert those boundaries that just to say, like, and there's someone who used to be an extreme people pleaser, and I'm not so much now. And I don't know whether it's as I get older, whether I've realized more and more that I'm going to lose my ever loving mind if I don't advocate for myself in certain situations. Choose your battles. Don't need to go in to fight for everything, but you can grey rock people, which means like not interacting with them, like no contact. You can ease your way back from interacting with those people if you try to set a boundary about something like I don't like it. I'd prefer if you didn't come over to my house without announcing first. Like, hard no. That's just the example that came into my mind. No one comes to my place, thank God. But if someone had a tendency to, and I was like, I really prefer if you let me know first. And they're like, it's fine. Like, it could be a family thing in their family where everyone just breezes by it. Maybe for them, it's not a problem to have someone come on over to their place without announcing or asking first. But if that person continued to do it after I requested and gave a reason why, it makes me feel uncomfortable. I would prefer to be prepared. I don't like the state of my house, and I would like to know so I could tidy up a bit. I just don't like surprises. The autistic in me doesn't like surprises. I like to know what's happening. I feel more less overwhelmed with my life when I have some sort of roadmap for what's going to happen, big or small, in life. So if that person continued to swing past, I would definitely start to distance myself from them, and because I've tried to assert the boundary. It's a fair, reasonable boundary. I've expressed the reasons why, and they continue to disrespect that boundary. You know, someone asked repeatedly insisting that you drink alcoholic beverages when you go out with them, and you don't really want to drink, or you want to have one drink and they want to have 12. Those boundaries, and if they keep pushing, and just in the end, that's a boundary that's important to you, that's not important to them. So we sort of have to navigate through that. But it's becoming practiced and understanding that some things are really important to us, other things not so much. Choose your battles and choose the people that you have these discussions with. And the ones that don't want to respect those boundaries are the ones you're probably going to like distance yourself from. And the ones who are happy to work with you, boundaries both ways, right? I love when people set boundaries with me. I love it. I love it. I'm like, yes, the parameters. We have some clear parameters here now. Now I know how to behave within your parameters. Really important.
When your attempt to set or enforce boundaries with a narcissist, and these can be simple boundaries, very simple, like things like, could you please not use your phone when we are eating dinner? There are
Holly
also many
Berry.
very nuanced boundaries. Please don't compare me to my mother, given the trauma of that relationship to me. When all of that fails,
Yes.
you are now thrown into a place
I am
characterized by
very
helplessness, hopelessness, and powerlessness. You may feel that maybe you didn't do it right.
Hi,
Or
Steve.
maybe it was your fault. You weren't clear enough. Or maybe you are being too sensitive. And again, it's more and more of the self gaslighting. And then the boundary violations persist because you may simply not understand what you're dealing with when you're dealing with a high conflict narcissistic partner. And it's in this way that over time, even when other people tried to set boundaries with the narcissist, it didn't work. The healthy or fortunate people were able to walk away from the narcissist once they recognized that their boundaries were not respected.
Holly Berry says narcissists give no fuck about boundaries, no matter how many times you tell them. Them fucking up is still your fault, assholes. Yes, Dr. Ramani talks about the fact that, and I've lived it. I'm sure we've all lived it to some degree. They'll trample all over those boundaries. They don't give a fuck. They don't give a fuck, but they're very good at asserting and maintaining their own boundaries because they don't give a fuck, right? That's why so many narcissists, or so many people in high positions of power in society and business and politics are likely people with narcissistic tendencies, if not full-blown narcissists, because they don't respect boundaries. They just trample on through, but they also assert their own boundaries. Hard nose, it's quite terrifying, really. Continuing. Doctor?
But the fact is, most people don't do that. And over time, they stop trying to enforce boundaries with the narcissist. And in that way, slowly, more and more
Hi,
people
Candy.
enable the narcissist because they can't be bothered with even taking this on with them. So this dynamic is particularly prevalent in family systems in which a parent does not honor boundaries. Because as a child, it is all but impossible to enforce boundaries with a parent. And none of the other adults around them they can't enforce boundaries with them either. And this is a theme that is observed in what we often traditionally term more codependent family systems. These family systems are governed by fear of the narcissist's reaction, fear of the narcissist's anger, and fear that the narcissist will devalue and discard them. In this way, narcissists do a great job of weaponizing boundaries. They pathologize you. They paint you as being crazy for wanting them. And they foster fear through their anger and their reactivity, which results in an even lower likelihood that people will consistently set boundaries. And then it can escalate the overall trauma bonding of the narcissistic relationship systems, whereby people defend and enable so they can avoid having to dismantle. Now, boundaries in the workplace are a major issue when you're dealing with workplace narcissists. Workplace narcissists and managers and supervisors violate boundaries in a whole range of ways. They ask you to work longer hours, and sometimes they'll ask you to do that without compensation. They'll give you responsibilities outside of your job description. They may ask you to do things at work that are not in line.
Abort, Steve. Do not text your ex-narc. Do not. Stay here. Type to us. Do not text them. Ever, ever, ever. Hard no contact. It's so hard. Sorry, I'm chewing, but I had to come out of chewing to say that. Don't. Like, we talk to us. Not worth it, man. Not worth it. You've come so far. Please don't. Please don't.
Line with the job. So, for example, picking up their laundry or researching a vacation for them, maybe even sending their mistress flowers. And those requests violate a personal boundary. They may ask inappropriate questions of your personal life, or it can veer into even more oppressive and toxic territory with sexual harassment, inappropriate advances, and even stalking. Obviously, these boundary violations exist on a spectrum. When you have narcissists in the workplace, they will violate boundaries. It's not will they will. They are sort of the sloppy drunks on business trips. And they're the reason we all have to complete these online.
Not just workplace, Dr. Ramani. I think that in friend groups, in family groups, family dynamics, sporting teams, this applies, all applicable.
Trainings about very ridiculous fundamental pieces of human interactions. Most of us understand boundaries, they don't. Boundary violations in the workplace are one of the primary ways that workplace narcissists reveal their narcissism and their abuse and their harassment. They will typically gaslight when they're called out on their boundaries. So, I was just having fun with you. In this new era, you can't even make a
Steve, yes. Intellectually, yes, I know, but the heart is tough to compete against. The fucking heart. It is. Talk to anybody else. Get yourself a new little bit of fluff. Go on a date. I know you went on a date recently. Go on more dates. Keep yourself occupied. Build more boxed furniture. Put your phone away from you. Honestly, like, I can't stress enough. It's so hard, but it's only going to cause you more pain. Chat is bae. Chat has got you, Steve.
make a joke. Come on, everyone does a little extra to get ahead. It's called ambition. In the era of Me Too, ironically, you would think that this would have slowed some of this down Interestingly, it has resulted in narcissistic individuals being even more contemptuous of boundary setting. Work isn't fun anymore. It's impossible to be able to talk with people anymore. It's as though they are not able to navigate a world with appropriate boundaries, so they reject it and they ridicule it. In the workplace, it is essential that you document everything. This is tedious, but it's necessary. If narcissists and other toxic colleagues and managers are behaving inappropriately, a record of this, ideally in sort of two-party sources like emails, voicemails, etc., are essential for human.
Maddie has many pearls of wisdom. This is one of them. You can't get bread at a hardware store, NH Dude. The narc will never be able to provide you with what you need. Facts. The narcissistic person, not just you, Steve. Sorry, we're not targeting you, but like all of us. I'm sure all of us have been with someone who we love, or are broken up from someone, or even a family member who we love, but they're just toxic. They suck the life out of you. They make you feel like shit. It's trauma bonds, Steve and chat, trauma bonds are very strong. It's breaking those trauma bonds. It's like it's breaking an addiction. They do it on purpose. These people do it to us on purpose to get control. And it's so hard. It's so hard. Block them, delete their number from your phone. Delete their number from your phone, man. Seriously. I'll stop going on at you, Steve, but I'm glad you said something. Don't text them. Abort.
Human resource or legal
Block them.
advisors
Block
to
them.
act on
Delete their
anything.
number.
Unfortunately, your first person report is not going to suffice. And even with the documentation you provide, you will be amazed at how
We love you,
often
Steve.
the narcissist will still prevail in these situations. Another tool is to have firm boundaries from the jump. This isn't easy for all of the reasons I already mentioned, that people feel like they don't want to be the wet towel from the jump, and they want to be able to engage in the workplace banter. Some people may even be confused by the poor boundaries. It can feel like if they're on the receiving end of these poor boundaries, that they may be sort of the favored child in the workplace or getting special opportunities. But then you realize it doesn't feel good. But in these ways, you can slowly acclimate to a setting that has confused boundaries and then very quickly find yourself in more problematic situations. Other boundary setting in the workplace might involve things like avoiding solo meetings with the narcissist when you can, avoiding meetings that involve alcohol or other inappropriate settings for meetings, such as, for example, private hotel rooms. Asking for meetings to be recorded, or you should ask for meetings to be recorded or detailed minutes taken. And it's important to keep copies of your work in hard copy for your records, because if there's any doubt about your contributions, you'll need that. Boundary violations are, in fact, one of the
Pammy.
primary ways that workplace narcissism does its damage. Workplace narcissists are enabled.
I'm going to pause. Sorry, Dr. Ramani, midway through your sentence. But hi, Pammy. Good to see you. Pammy says, I finally turned the corner to feeling a high from not contacting my ex in the shaky moments, because I know he'd get pleasure from me giving in. Exactly. And when I deny him that, it's gratifying. Yes, you're taking back your power. Yeah, Pammy. Same for me. Like, let's talk about the fucking elephant in the room, the shit that's been going on in my world, in our world. I don't even know anymore. I don't think it could still be going on. I mean, one of the people in our chat early on tonight was absolutely a flying monkey, coming in to fucking dick swing around the place like the bullshit person that they are. Female dick swinging, just saying. Got your number, mate. We see you. I saw you. Thanks for the hate views. Anyway, taking back your power and going no contact in whatever means you possible. So for me, I don't have Twitter on my phone anymore. I can't. I've still got Twitter on my computer, but it doesn't even cross my mind. I'm not a hard no, like a hard no. Let them be toxic over there, be toxic together, scream into the echo chamber. But even if it was just one person, go for it. I'm not interested. I'm out. It's a boundary. It's a hard boundary. Anyway, carry on. Sorry, Dr. Romney. Just had to say it.
Labeled by the yes men and yes women and sycophants and people who are afraid of killing the golden goose or of angering a terrifying boss. Just like in a family where the narcissistic parent is enabled, the same dynamic happens in the workplace. And that is precisely how the mailroom tyrant can get promoted all the way to being the CEO tyrant. The fear that they generate is equated with power and strength. And the fear of calling them out on their boundary violations means that people enable them, shut up, or leave the job.
Sorry, I was on a
So
rant.
what do you do?
Shut up and leave the job. Exactly. Sometimes that's easier said than done. If people have got, oh, sorry, Dr. Romney. If people have got family and commitments and mortgages to pay or rent to pay or no other option. Thank you, Steve, for the gift of memberships. Welcome new members. Let me see. I always like to see who gets them. Some funny ones come up, don't they, chat? And this, yes, we'll play a song soon too. I'm wondering whether we should probably play Hard No, but that's not really about it. Let me see. I won't play it yet. Oh, it's a no-brainer. Give me a minute. Not yet. We're going to do more Doctor.
You certainly can't live without boundaries, but you have to become realistic about them if you are in a narcissistic relationship. First and always, you need to practice rule number 1 of narcissistic relationships. You have to have realistic expectations. Unfortunately, narcissistic individuals do not integrate feedback from other people well, least of all when it can be perceived as any kind of criticism, which is just about any kind of feedback that they receive.
Bingo, Dr. Ramani. Can attest that the Adam Levi Boyd, if you don't know the story, sorry, it's too long, exposed him to as being discovered and exposed him as being the predator registered child sex offender in our community that he was. Hated any kind of feedback, any, even when he asked for it about his creative stuff, his work, or just in general. It was great. Loved it when he turned into a little bitch boy about it. But hi in the clouds 4. I love seeing new faces in chat. I presume possibly you've watched us before. If not, welcome to Camp Shorty. And in the clouds 4 says, it took me 5 years to get away from my narcissistic ex. I stood my ground. He put his hands on me. I'm so sorry, man. I've been there. That's tough, terrifying. He was arrested and got charged with felony assault and attempted murder. Last time I saw him was in court. Yikes, man. Well, man is a generic phrase. Yikes. Thank you for joining us and sharing. I hope you're doing okay. Dr. Ramani helps. This community helps. We're so happy to have you here, and thank you so much for sharing.
For long-term narcissistic relationships that you've been in, you then realize that your feedback is not going to help, and they are not likely to change that much. If this is a new relationship and new territory, then you need to be prepared that they will not honor your boundaries. So it may be a red flag to get out and cut your losses and step away from the relationship. Second, you need to use these expectations to set a different kind of boundary. Stop engaging and sharing important things about
I just don't know
yourself.
colors.
Don't share your feelings. Don't share your emotions. Don't share your aspirations. Don't share your negative moods. Don't share much with a narcissist.
The problem is if they're not really obviously a narcissist, sometimes it's too late. By the time you realize that they're a narcissist, you're fucked. Colors, yeah, I don't think it is either, but whatever. It doesn't touch me. So that. That. Carry on, Dr. Ramani. That might be her sex face. Sorry, Dr. Ramani. That's not cool to say that.
Basically, yeah, go gray rock. In so doing, it becomes less about you waiting for them to honor a boundary.
Same, Michelle.
But instead, it becomes about you setting one
Thank you
for
for being here.
yourself that you can honor and enforce. It isn't easy in the beginning. And over time, you start to realize that this isn't really much of a relationship. Some people may recognize this as the point to leave a relationship, that it's completely empty, while others may recognize that they cannot be their authentic
Why am
selves
I
in the
like this?
relationship. And
There,
while they
boom,
may not be willing or able
boom. Wait,
to leave the relationship,
wind it back, Dr. Ramani. That there. So if you are terrified to, or reticent to, or unable to set boundaries in any relationship, little, massive, hey, please don't use the thumbs up. Hey, please don't come to my house. Hey, I don't like it when you do that sexually. Whatever the thing is, then you're not being true to yourself. And if you're not being true to yourself, to your true authentic self, then that's kind of a disappointing or an unsatisfying way to live your life. Authenticity feels amazing when you stand by the things that you believe in, the things that are important to you, big or small. You feel complete. I feel complete, and the people that don't appreciate your authenticity and your completeness, they're not for you. Like, they're not for you. It just takes some practice. It really does. And not being anyway, one of the videos we're going to watch is Dr. Ramani talking about what does it say? No, not that one. Boundary settings without being an asshole. I think, Simi, we could, not that I think you're an asshole, but it's a good one.
you start to realize that this isn't really much of a relationship. Some people may recognize this as the point to leave a relationship, that it's completely empty, while others may recognize that they cannot be their authentic selves in the relationship. And while they may not be willing or able to leave the relationship, they may instead to choose to cultivate other sources of support. The bottom line is that the boundary is something you set for yourself. You don't share, you don't engage, and you don't take their bait, and you sure as heck don't wait around and wait for them to actually honor your boundaries. So why do narcissists have such a difficult time with boundaries? Arrogance, entitlement, impulsivity, poor self-reflective capacity, lack of empathy, grandiosity. Short answer, the rules, they think they don't apply to them. They want to do what they want to do. And then after they have their impulsive acting out, sometimes they apologize. They're poorly regulated and impulsive. So they will often violate a boundary, do what they want to help them regulate their negative mood state at a given time. Their poor self-reflective capacity means that they're not able to take a moment to think about how their actions or words are impacting other people. And then there's the issue of shame. Shame is actually a very interesting consequence for narcissists. When they violate boundaries, there may sometimes be a public reaction. The family gets mad at them, a workplace supervisor takes action, they have to face a lawsuit, and then they feel their narcissistic version of bad. They feel
Never, Joey.
ashamed.
Never.
Now,
I
you
love
would
you.
think that would mean that they would stop the boundary violating behavior, but unfortunately, that's not how shame works for them. Instead,
Why, Joey? Did you not be able to chat for a little while? Maybe Michelle put you in a timeout. She's a bit of a cunt like that. I'm joking. Michelle would never. Joey, you're our Joey. There's no way. There's no way. I would never. Sir, how dare you? That's assault.
it drills down into the most self-loathing parts of the narcissist, and it creates a sense of
Oh.
self-anger that they project out into the world.
Joey, well, now you can type fuckface, and there it is. Boom. There's no way. I have no limit words on my channel. We'll type whatever. We even say cunt. It says it in the intro song. Curse all you want. YouTube can suck our collective dicks, right? We'll type what the fuck we want. And if we get shadow banned for it, that's fine. We're going to, no censorship here, no censorship.
World. And then they violate even more boundaries from a place of contempt and a place of anger at themselves that they project onto the world.
I would
It's
never.
a sad dynamic, but it often plays out this way. Now, boundary setting is considered to be one of the most useful strategies with a narcissist, but also one of the most frustrating. They will not honor them, and enforcing the boundaries is a futile pursuit. But the boundaries still remain important. In the extreme, laws do sometimes stop narcissists.
Look at
They
you
don't wanna
go,
to
Amber,
jail.
doing the
They may
chores.
violate a boundary, which is also breaking the law, like trespassing.
Pause. This is interesting. This is my ex. Not that one. The one before, George, the very abusive ex. Oh my god, the fucking vile the zero adherence to any of societal boundaries or rules. He used to, if he had to post a letter, I'm not sure why we had to post a letter, but he would go to the post office and he would say, "Can I have a 1 cent stamp, please?" And they'd say, like, it's $1.40 for a stamp. He'd go, "I just want a 1 cent stamp." And they'd be like, "But that's not enough." He'd go, "Just give me a 1 cent stamp." And I'd say to him, "But that means that's why postage stamps are going up, because people don't put sufficient postage on things, and then society has to pay for your being a fuckwit." And he'd be like, "I don't pay for stamps. I'm not paying." Or he'd just stroll across the road. She just mentioned jaywalking, which reminded me. Stroll across the road, not on a zebra crossing, a pedestrian crossing, not at traffic lights, not when the green man, and just walk across the road, or stroll in the road when there were, in shopping center car parks, malls, and the cars would be walking behind him. He's just so entitled, such an absolute fucking asshole. Oh, it was so uncomfortable for me, because I love rules. I love societal, boundaries, guardrails. They're there and for a reason. It's important. Anyway, moving on.
Trespassing or carrying a gun someplace they should not be carrying a gun, or pushing a person physically who doesn't let them cut ahead in a line. And then law enforcement gets called, and maybe they get arrested.
Yes.
Probably not, because they talk themselves out of it.
Wait.
Maybe they go to the jail. Probably not. But that's a real.
One's in the chat. If currently drunk or tipsy, NH Dude should change his handle to NH Nude. I reckon change it to something else first, and then immediately change it to NH Nude, because then you can't change it back for 14 days. Ask Lumpy Oatmeal, right, Joey? Yes, one's in the chat. If Steve should change his handle to NH Nude. Love. 1010.
A real consequence. Now, interestingly, you would think that fear of jail or prison would shape their behavior in the future.
Hi, Val. Good to
Not
see
as
you.
a rule. Prison is not a treatment for narcissism. And once a narcissistic individual comes out of prison, the narcissistic patterns
pause.
remain. They may
Sorry,
even be
Dr. Rumpy.
worse.
Fuck. Sorry, the continuity is way off right now. Sorry, chat. We haven't done one of these for a while, though, huh? Princey says you can pick them. You know what, though? The thing is, all three of my narcissistic, like the three relationships I've had in the last 20 years, have been with varying degrees of narcissistic folks, from full-blown diagnosable psychopath, George, to, I guess, just narcissistic and destructive pedo pirate. And then my son's father is somewhere in between those two. They pick me. Empaths, me. Extreme empath, INFJ, me. Autistic, me. I am a magnet for toxic motherfuckers. Chat. Who else can relate to this? Chat. If you're any of those three or all three, INFJ, empath, autistic, or neurodivergent, right? Sorry, Dr. Ramani. I'm a magnet for it. But it's possible to break those cycles, right? Hopefully.
They also will sit there and view themselves as a victim of an unfair system, and will keep breaking the rules and violating boundaries.
Looks like you're doing it,
And I
Steve.
can say with
Everyone
some
says
confidence,
Maddie says
it
yes.
may literally be impossible to
We're
have a
going back now.
narcissist maintain appropriate boundaries. When it comes down to it, they are limit testing
Chat has
children
spoken.
who always try to stay up
Yes,
1 minute
Fritzy.
later than bedtime. And everyone needs to be clear on their personal non-negotiable boundary. We all have one. For some people in a relationship, it might be, for example, cheating or infidelity. For others, it might be someone stealing money from them. For others, it may be physical
Colors
violence.
says no.
Everyone has their non-negotiable. And if the narcissist crosses the non-negotiable line, then people may actually feel more empowered to do the ultimate boundary drawing and get out. But again, the idea of creating boundaries that the
Pause. Sorry, Dr. Rami, I'm going to go back a bit. Val, are you on a laptop? Oh, what am I doing? Fuck. Are you on a laptop or are you on your phone or your handheld device like a tablet? If you're on your laptop, you can just go to my channel homepage and click join, or you might have got an email recently from YouTube saying, hey, your membership's about to expire or it has expired, and would you like to renew? And it will give you a link to go straight there. That might be the easiest way, particularly if you're on an iPhone. I think Amber has the hint about how to join on an iPhone. Me, not so much. I'm just like the front girl. I don't know shit about shit. I skipped back a bit.
on stealing money from them. For others, it may be physical violence. All have to stay up 1
Wait.
minute. Once a narcissistic individual comes out of prison, the narcissistic patterns remain. They may even be worse. They also will sit there and view themselves as a victim of an unfair system and will keep breaking the rules and violating boundaries. And I can say with some confidence, it may literally be impossible to have a narcissist maintain appropriate boundaries. When it comes down to it, they are limit testing children who always try to stay up 1 minute later than bedtime. And
I know you
everyone
said two
needs to be
colors.
clear on their personal non-negotiable boundary.
Nude
We all
dudes,
have
where?
one. For some people in a relationship, it might be, for example, cheating or infidelity. For others, it might be someone stealing money from them. For others, it may be physical violence. Everyone has their non-negotiable.
Steve, man, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. But also, Michelle suggested nude dude. I like nude dude. Nude dude 603. Nude dude 69. That would be a testimony to your shorty allegiance to the shorties. Nude dude 69. One's in the chat if you should change it to nude dude 69. Yikes. You do you, boo. No peer pressure, but a little bit.
And if the narcissist crosses the non-negotiable line, then people may actually feel more empowered to do the ultimate boundary drawing and get out. But again, the idea of creating boundaries that the narcissist is going to honor on a regular basis is ridiculous. It's on us to manage our boundaries. And the ways we can manage those boundaries is to not engage, not have idle banter with them, to not spar, and to not render ourselves vulnerable. So it is on us. We have to be our own gatekeepers. We have to protect our own boundaries.
Yes.
And we have to
Yes.
value ourselves enough
Yes,
and our
Dr.
boundaries
Ramani.
and our limits enough to respect our
Yes.
boundaries for
It's a-
ourselves and give ourselves
Preach.
permission to disengage from toxic and difficult people.
Preach, Dr. Ramani. It's about respecting yourself. 100%. I've got tears in my eyes. I'm so emphatic about this. And sorry, Dr. Ramani, I'm not going to say what I said last time, but I'm just going to say, call back to the last comment I made about Dr. Ramani's last facial expression. It's all about respect. And I respect myself, and I value my well-being and my emotional and mental stability. It's sometimes precarious, those things. I find it hard to regulate emotionally. Boundaries set for myself, by myself, and set by me for others, excuse me, is a sign as I've more and more started to respect myself, I have no problem with setting boundaries for myself or for others because I respect myself and I love myself. And, you know, if other people don't respect those boundaries, well, do they respect me? Nah. See, it's important. It's very important.
Who will never respect our boundaries. And in so doing, boundary setting can stop feeling like a frustrating and hopeless endeavor, but instead, it can feel like a lesson in empowerment and the fact that the most powerful boundary you have
Yes,
is
baby.
to simply not engage with someone who is not good for you.
I'm really going to take on the issue
Okay.
of why boundaries are so hard to set.
Yes, Dr. Harmony. But we're going to have a quick little song break because we just are. Here, this one. Enjoy.
All kinds of granular. This shit is nuance. Nothing is binary. Controlled for the last dance. Scrabbling, babbling, lying and spying. Flip on a dime, but still I ain't crying. No, I ain't playing. Not gonna lie. No, I ain't playing. Not gonna lie. Yeah, I'm just saying. Peace out, bye bye. Waiting and waiting and losing your mind. No, I ain't playing. Fast forward, rewind. Wind it back, it's boring. Yip, 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 hush now. Yawning, not happening. Oh, hell no, get out. One of these days, maybe all's y'all get tired. Campaign manager probably should get fired. Nope, I ain't playing. Not gonna lie. Yeah, I'm just saying. Peace out, bye bye. Waiting and waiting and losing your mind. No, I ain't playing. Fast forward, rewind. Dragon so desperate and broil us in drama. Outgrown you, fuck this shit, no drama llama. Esoteric shit, touch some or smoke some. Y'all are so hectic, peace, quiet, karma. Yeah, I ain't playing. Not gonna lie. Yeah, I'm just saying. Peace out, bye bye. Fading and waiting and losing your mind. No, I ain't playing. Fast forward, rewind. Endlessly tedious. Haters be hating. Stamp that shit, shorties. I'm outie, I'm skating. Oof, y'all, they had a mission. Trip fall, they still be wishing. Give them something, anything, I'm done dancing. It ain't no thing. Yo, I ain't playing. Not gonna lie. Yeah, I'm just saying. Peace out, bye bye. Waiting and waiting and losing your mind. No, I ain't playing. Fast forward, rewind. Endlessly tedious. Haters be hating. Stamp that shit, shorties. I'm outie, I'm skating. Oof, y'all, they had a mission. Trip fall, they still be wishing. Give them something, anything, I'm done dancing. It ain't no thing. Yo, I ain't playing. Not gonna lie. Yeah, I'm just saying. Peace out, bye bye. Waiting and waiting and losing your mind. No, I ain't playing. Fast forward, rewind.
That Laura, yes, you get lost yourself. You get yourself lost in the process of the back and forth because you care so much. I have big feelings and thoughts about as an empath, as an INFJ, and those things. I don't think necessarily the neurodivergence is as critical to this, but being able to create a boundary for oneself as an empath to the absorption of energy is such an important thing. They can be practical, actual boundaries, like deleting Twitter off my phone. There's a hard boundary. Yeah, it's a tangible, practicable boundary setting. But if you are able to to create, and I think Pierre, it was you that said you suggest to your children, or perhaps it was Brit, maybe it was Brit, to envision yourself putting on a big raincoat, or I think of it as Teflon coated, or like a glass shield between myself and those energies, and articulating those boundaries. Like, this is a big trauma dump. You're giving me a lot of information about yourself that I'm not actually willing or able right now to take on. So saying to that person, if you could share with me those thoughts or feelings in smaller chunks, perhaps with paragraph breaks, but creating some sort of emotional boundary against those energies from others is the only way that an empath and an INFJ isn't going to burn out and kind of lose themselves in all that energy that we so naturally and just it's just part of us to absorb those things. So that's, as an empath, that's one of the things I've learnt the most, because I was drowning in the worldwide energies, and that's how I've coped, like, honestly, so well, other than my beautiful supportive friends and this community. And those physical boundaries, like not seeing the things, not engaging with the flying monkeys and the trolls and the haters, not going near Twitter, turning off my notifications. But had I not been able to protect myself, my emotions and my mental health with those kind of boundaries, and just letting go, like the let them thing, that's how I've gotten through these last 8-9 weeks. It just is. Had I been more like 5 years ago, I don't think I'd still be alive now. If this had happened 5 years ago, I think I probably would have succumbed, because it was just so vile. I mean, it's probably still so vile, but it doesn't touch me, because I've got those boundaries in place emotionally and mentally, as well as practical. Okay, back to Dr. Robert. Hope you like the song.
In narcissistic relationships. So before we get to that, please come on over.
Yes, Brit. Yes, Brit.
And then hit that bell to get notifications every time we put out new videos, which is several times a week. So let's break this down. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm always making this suggestion to you, but I'm aware that it's not so easy. So why are boundaries so hard to set? Especially for people who are in any kind of narcissistic
that's even better. Look how big Dr. Ramani is now.
I know that some of you hear this guidance, or many of you hear this guidance, not just from me, but from everybody who talks about toxic relationships.
Facts, Joey.
That one of the most important tools in managing narcissists is boundaries. Honestly, it's one of the most important tools in life. But if you can master that, then you got your narcissist all figured out. So if it's so simple, then why is it so difficult? There are two simple reasons that boundaries are so hard to set. And interestingly, they are also part of the reason you got stuck in a relationship with a narcissist in the first place, and why you remain stuck in it for a very long time. What are these two reasons? Number one.
Look at me being all technical.
You are worried about other people's reactions.
Stop.
And what other people will think if you set a boundary. Your fear is if you set a boundary,
cheering myself.
People will not like it. They're going to think that you're not a very nice person. Even the people in your life who are not narcissistic.
Why?
Let's.
I just thought to myself, Gazella, Grizzly True Crime, moves things around on screen. Dr. Ramani's subtitles, closed captions, is being obscured by the comments on the screen. I wonder if I can move them. And guess what? I moved them. Like I'm a professional and shit. Like I'm a proper YouTuber now. I think maybe, yes, we've got there. Self-actualization is mine. Oh, go Dr. Ramani.
Let's view it simply. In the most simple version of a boundary, what is it? It's about saying no. It's about not giving in. It's about not giving up too much, not agreeing to something you cannot do, not agreeing to something that makes you uncomfortable, not overextending. Think of the last time, really, think about the last time you set a boundary. Share it in the comments if you want. What was that boundary about? I know for me that the most recent boundary I had to set was a few days ago, and I had to say no to something. It was
that's on the
very
face.
uncomfortable.
Sorry, Dr. Robert.
And I know I let someone down.
Let me move it.
But on that day, I happened to be exhausted, and I knew I was kind of burned out.
That's
And the
it.
person asking me of this thing I needed to do was incredibly entitled.
What have I done?
Did I sit with this discomfort for a few minutes? Yeah. And after about 30 minutes, that discomfort left. I was relieved and I had a better day as a result. But in my case, it was easier because there was no one else who knew was setting the boundary. When there's other people.
Chad, I'm having a moment. I'm crying a little bit because I'm actually Gazelle. Okay. Thanks. Supreme Leader, you're welcome.
People involved, it's really hard. The other issue is not just feeling like you're letting down one person, but again, it's that bigger idea of how will other people view you. There's often the concern that other people will either view you as lazy or as a flake or as not a team player or just that anxious feeling that people are not going to like me because I set a boundary. That concern that you will be judged harshly is why so many people keep giving in to doing too much, usually for the toxic people who just keep asking.
Pause. Nick Francis, if you're still here and you asked about, are they deal breakers or are they hard boundaries? These are the reasons why people often slip and acquiesce, one of my favorite words, to boundaries that they've set because of all this, winding it back because Dr. Ramani is a fucking queen. Sit in the discomfort. I love Dr. Ramani so much. She's my spirit animal. One day when in another life, I'm going to be Dr. Ramani.
Think about the last time you set a boundary. Share it in the comments if you want. What was that boundary about? I know for me that the most recent boundary I had to set was a few days ago, and I had to say no to something. It was very uncomfortable.
No,
and I know I let someone down. But on that day, I happened to be exhausted, and I knew I was kind of burned out. And the person asking me of this thing I needed to do was incredibly entitled. Did I sit with this discomfort for a few minutes? Yeah. And after about 30 minutes, that discomfort left. I was relieved and I had a better day as a result. But in my case, it was easier because there was no one else who knew was setting the boundary. When there's other people involved, it's really hard. The other issue is not just feeling like you're letting down one person, but again, it's that bigger idea of how will other people view you. There's often the concern that other people will either view you as lazy or as a flake or as not a team player or just that anxious feeling that people are not going to like me because I set a boundary. That concern that you will be judged harshly is why so many people keep giving in to doing too much, usually for the toxic people who just keep asking for more. There is an ancient quote by Lao Tzu who said, "Care what other people think, and you will forever be their prisoner." That quote could not be more true when it comes to setting boundaries. We are never fully going to live in a world where we never care about what other people think.
Facts. Nude Dude 69. That's it. Chat has spoken. Safely home. Now I need to change my handle. Yes. And no, colors. And you know what? Oh my God, what the fuck? Something just came on my screen. Maiden, I feel like you were the one who was the gaslighting. Chat, the gaslighting, you all. Chat is bae. Carry on, Dr. Ramani. I love you. Love.
But we tend to put too much importance on that when it comes to boundary setting. And then we don't end up setting the boundaries. And finally, because so many people out there feel like they are not enough, they just keep doing and doing and doing for other people, thinking that there's a point they can reach where they'll feel like they're enough. They can fix that. It's never enough for other people, especially for narcissistic people. So feeling like you're not enough, that's on you to address. Doing stuff for other people ain't going to address that. The big issue here is that these very qualities in ourselves are caring.
Pause. Are in Homestead. I'm in family court with my narcissist and Judge Bev ruling jail for pled guilty ton of VB DV, and not a big deal for Judge Bev believed it all. I need a bit more information, but it sounds like you've had a heavy time of late. I'm so sorry, RN Homestead. Give us a little bit more there if you want to share. This is the right place. Chat is Bay. And if you're talking about the Judge Bev, I don't think there's any other Judge Bev. I'm sure there are, but not in these circles. Yikes.
Too much about what other people think, being afraid of letting other people down, feeling like you have to keep rescuing or doing stuff for other people, feeling like you're not enough, not liking the feeling of letting other people down is literally exactly part of what made you so vulnerable to a narcissistic relationship and perhaps found it so hard to get out, or maybe you're still in it. Toxic people take and take and take. They don't have the empathy to care. They're deeply entitled. So they're never going to stop and take stock and wonder if they are asking too much of someone. In fact, it's more likely that they simply view you as a convenience, an object to fulfill their needs. So they aren't going to wonder if they are asking too much of you. And if you care what they think and never set a boundary, then you will be living life as a bottomless well that keeps serving their needs. You're the only one who can stop this cycle. That's a boundary. The second thing, what is it? The second thing that makes it so difficult to set boundaries? It's guilt. This relates quite strongly to the first point, but guilt is the idea, and I should say the emotion associated with the feeling that you've done something wrong. And in this case, you've done something wrong by saying no, or that you can't, or you won't do something.
Hi, Halo, good to see
you
you.
don't want to do something. Guilt about saying no is how people double down on all of this stress. But guilt is one of the strongest glues that keep people in any kind of narcissistic relationship. I feel guilty I didn't visit my mother, even though she's always criticizing me. I feel guilty I am not more supportive of my partner. I feel guilty I didn't give my son the ride he asked for. I feel guilty I didn't sign up to do the extra evaluations at work. Guilt is
Hey guys, what are you doing here?
uncomfortable.
What are you guys just woke
and
up, did
we
you?
don't like it.
Ow.
So many times it is easier to give in and do the visit to your mom and have the same time-wasting conversation with your partner, or give your son the ride, or do the extra work, than to set the boundary and endure the discomfort of the guilt. Many of us were taught from an early age by either watching parents in a dysfunctional marriage or just by how your dysfunctional family system worked, that to not go along to get along meant that you were the problem. That setting a boundary was simply not an option. It was highly enmeshed and nobody was setting boundaries. We actually do a terrible job at teaching kids to set boundaries in a healthy manner. Now, obviously, there are some things that they need to do. We all need to do. They need to do their chores. They need to brush their teeth. They need to fulfill their school requirements or make their bed. But go beyond that. Sometimes we force kids to play with kids who make them uncomfortable, or do extra activities like sports that they don't want to play, or instruments that they don't want to learn because the parent wants them to play the sport or be friends with their friend's child. The child
wants to go out, BRB.
And that child may not feel that he or she can say no. If the child finally finds the courage to say no, they will often face a world of guilt and hurt from a narcissistic parent. After all I do for you, you just won't play soccer or spend time with me or spend the entire weekend with the family, even though, of course, the damn family is scapegoating this child. The child doesn't learn boundaries or is guilted for setting them. So you can imagine that association of guilt and boundary will then stream into adulthood. The reason that learning how to set boundaries, especially with manipulative and narcissistic narcissistic people, I should say, is so difficult is that you need to learn to get okay with a new kind of discomfort. You need to get okay with possibly not being liked, or maybe being unpopular, or the judgmental scrutiny of other people,
Yes,
or the
Dr.
guilt.
Ramani. Yes.
Assuming that your boundaries are appropriate. For example, you aren't saying, hey, I'm coming to work, but I'm not going to do what you're paying me to do. Well, obviously, that's not going to fly. But assuming that you're setting boundaries in reasonable ways, not taking on extra work you don't have the time for, or going to places where you will be facing criticism or gaslighting, or just not wanting to do something optional because you're exhausted or simply just want
Thank
to
you,
attend to
Joey. You're
other
the best.
caregiving duties you have at home, then it's about understanding that setting boundaries sets a tone. The key, and this isn't always possible,
Pause.
especially with
Pause,
parents or
Dr.
siblings
Ramani.
or
It's this not just with parental relationships. It's not just with family dynamics. What I said in the beginning of this live stream is I didn't poach it off Dr. Ramani. I already think it. Setting smaller boundaries. It's a bit like reverse grooming, right? So grooming of a person, or God forbid, a child, or testing boundaries is grooming, right? So sexual predators test boundaries by incremental, starting with sort of seemingly benign gestures or affection or verbiage, comments, and then they push the boundaries. They see where that boundary is, right? Where does your boundary end? But as they normalize that, those behaviors, and whether that's just being toxic and mean to someone, or whether it's sexual grooming, whatever, that the person being groomed, child or person, becomes like, air quotes, comfortable, because it's normalized. It's little incremental things. Same with setting boundaries. If you start with gentle, small, inconsequential boundaries with someone, for example, the thumbs up, right? Let's go back to that example. Um, it, if the person who you set that boundary with is receptive and respects that boundary, then you can try next time for something a bit bigger. Like, I prefer if you didn't, I don't know, call me something, I don't know, and then you could go like, I really would prefer if you, I can't think of any examples, because but smaller things, like incremental. That's what Dr. Ramani is saying now. So it's like reverse grooming, right? I just made my own Dr. Shorty concept. That's all I'm saying. I'm actually a genius. Thanks. Let's keep going. Just ask me. Lol.
or relationships you didn't choose.
I hadn't even thought that out first.
to
It
do
just
the
came into
boundary
my
setting
brain
on the
like I'm
front.
smart or something.
But since most of you watching this are already fully mired in your narcissistic relationships, this becomes about starting to set those boundaries now, today, to start learning to get okay with the discomfort. I got to tell you, you're choosing between two evils, two difficult situations. But one of them may just be a feeling that you're constructing for yourself, that discomfort, that if I set this boundary, nobody's going to like me. If the people you know or work with or whatever are able to reject you that quickly just for setting a boundary, they really aren't that healthy for
I'm
you.
really,
And in
really
fact,
smart. I'm
you
really
may be
smart.
doing the thing that other people are not comfortable doing, which is setting that line. And if they're willing to dump you, well, then they really weren't that in the first place.
Miss me. Bye.
Boundary setting can also be more difficult if you are not empowered in a given situation. For example, as a function of race, or the amount of money you have, or gender, or some other status that disempowers
Or
you.
being an Australian,
Boundaries
for
are
fuck's sake.
often a privilege of the privileged.
Not you, chat.
But there are a
Chat is
million
gay.
small ways you can still set them, even if you lack that privilege. Give yourself permission to leave when a conversation becomes taxing, or mentally cut out and go to some happy place in your mind. Use your silence as a boundary. Gray rocking is also a form of boundary. Disengaging is a form of boundary setting. This can be a million small ways that you do this. So I'm well aware when I say, hey, everyone, here's a thought for managing a narcissist, just set a boundary, that may very well set off a whole series of uncomfortable psychological experiences for you. It's not as easy as just saying, no, I'm not going to do that. It's a trade-off. But
Steve,
in the long term, getting comfortable with your...
I don't know if you're talking about the ex. Don't worry about that. You could give them a full statistical analysis. You could give them scientific proof that the sky is blue just with your eyeballs. You could have a recording of a conversation. A narcissist will shut you down and gaslight you without receipts. Just walk away, man. Walk away. Walk away. If you're not talking about that, sorry, my bad. Can't.
With your own discomfort can end up being far better for your mental health than a lifetime of just giving in to entitled and difficult people. Try it in a small way this week. Try one little boundary and see how it works out
every
for
day.
you.
Every
Again,
day.
It's often baby steps. You may have been not able to set boundaries for a lifetime. Rome wasn't built in a day, and you're not going to build huge boundaries in a week.
But my favorite saying almost of all time, I have many, is Rome wasn't built in a day, but they did work on it every day, right?
You can start somewhere.
Thanks.
As someone
I'm
who just
so
had
wise.
to set a very uncomfortable boundary in the last 48 hours, I got to tell you, that discomfort, it hits your heart. It hits you right here. All those old voices hit you. But if you give yourself a minute, you'll see that the discomfort doesn't kill you. And then there's a new feeling that floods you, which is relief that, oh my goodness, I feel really relieved that I did not agree to do that thing that's just going to leave me feeling resentful and frustrated. So let's face it, everyone in toxic relationships is told one thing.
Pause.
Set boundaries, right?
Time for a music break. Princey doesn't want to get too overloaded. We all don't want to get too overloaded. And Joey, sweet Joey, sweet lumpy Joey, Dr. Ramani. Sorry about that pause. I can't. That's cruel and unusual. I can't with that.
In fact,
that's better. Song break. Enjoy. You will have heard this one before, but it's not going to be compressed and tinny. It's just going to sound amazing. Mwah.
So here's the thing with narcissists, they always have to win. They'll cast aspersions, they'll gaslight you. To them nothing's a sin. The narc, he wants to own you, your every waking thought. He'll love bomb, then disown you, cycle forevermore. But what if this is all just noise? Hurt people, hurting people, or either one of us so bad? Is either of us evil? The empath and the narcissist. Hurt people, hurting people. The narcissist, he needs to be the center of your world. And if you dare to shut him out, his mask, it's gonna fall. Just walk away, cut off his air, don't give him anything. Not gonna change, it's over, girl. Take this nothing as a win. But what if this is all just noise? Hurt people, hurting people, or either one of us so bad, or either of us evil. The empath and the narcissist. Hurt people, hurting people. Now here's the thing. With empaths, victory matters not one bit. We feel it all, yes, even his, the pain in the abyss. An empath, she can see it all from every awful angle. And those who ravage us the most are the ones we try to heal. They're drawn to us, they need our light. We shine from dusk till dawn. The most we'll do is shut you out while you are keeping score. But what if this is all just noise? Hurt people, hurting people. Is either one of us so bad, or either of us evil? The empath and the narcissist hurt people, hurting people. Oh, it's all just noise, forget the rest. All we can do is do our best. The empath and the narcissist, we're just two hurting grown-up kids. But what if this is all just noise? Hurt people, hurting people. Is either one of us so bad, or either of us evil? Hurt people, hurting people. The empath and the narcissist hurt people.
Love, love, love. One of my favorites. So Kelly Clarkson. Laura, I write all my own lyrics. I write all my own lyrics in my notes app on my phone, and then drop them into into the Suno app as a complete song, and then put prompts. Steve, take care, be good. Don't do anything we wouldn't do. We'd rather you talk to us than try to close that god-awful narcissistic can of worms. But we get you. We get you. Yes. Okay. Yes. Yes. Good. There you go. You meant keywords as in yes. Cool. Oh, wait. Share screen. Fuck. What do I do? One last bit of this one. Doctor? Sorry about that pause, Dr. Ramani.
Everyone in every relationship is told to set boundaries in all of their relationships, family relationships, intimate relationships, workplaces, relationships, friendships, right?
This is the problem.
You know, boundaries is a big issue, right? Boundaries means being clear on issues ranging from time to communication to sex, anything. To give ourselves permission to set a line, to feel safe, and to communicate that line.
Zero true crime.
Right? I'm guilty of this, right? It's one of even the elements of healing I put out there. It's giving the guidance that you should attempt to set boundaries in a narcissistic relationship. In some ways, it's a test. And once you see the narcissistic person will ignore or continue to violate the boundaries, please view that as a bit of a wake-up call. I know that the boundaries won't work, but many people want to rule everything out before they think a toxic relationship is absolutely done. So you set the boundaries. You actually may get stronger. You might get stronger through therapy, maybe because you've been educating yourself about narcissism. Maybe you just get stronger from sheer exasperation, but you get stronger, you follow the guidance, and you really finally do it. You set the boundaries. And then, you know what the narcissist does? They call you controlling. I hear this over and over again from people who attempt to set boundaries in their narcissistic relationships. For years, they didn't set boundaries in these relationships because they were confused, or they blamed themselves, or they did not understand what they were dealing with. Some folks did not set them because they just didn't know how to set them. And let's face it, the vast majority of people are not.
I love that even more, Steve. Difficult conversations are so important to have. people generally shy away from them because they're not fun, they're not pleasant, and you may get some pushback from that person because people feel uncomfortable with difficult conversations. But if we start to practice having difficult conversations, opening up those lines of communication, the world will be a better place. I swear to God, if we all just normalized, sorry, Dr. Ramani, yikes. If we normalized having tough conversations, starting with the smaller tough ones rather than toxic positivity and sweeping shit under the rug and avoiding things and not setting boundaries, I think we'd all get along a lot better in life. Just my thoughts.
Not taught how to set boundaries in childhood. And if you had a narcissistic parent, then forget about it. You were never given permission
not
to set
smug.
boundaries.
No.
And if you did, you would
Wait,
have faced
pause.
rage.
I get a little bristly on my songs, and no, Laura, no smug. I think we're on the very similar wavelength, Laura. And I mean, they're all keywords, particularly if your music, and I haven't listened to it yet because I haven't gotten into that draw, and I will after this. No, not smug at all. Not smug at all. No. Love. I'm glad we're on the same wavelength. That's why you would love it here, because we all kind of think very similarly, but not echo chambers similarly. Just we're a community, right? We're a family. Thanks, Pammy. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk. Yeah.
And punishment. And if you didn't even get to see boundaries being set, maybe even by your other parent or within the family system, and you didn't see them being enacted, it's hard to do something
Dr.
that you were never taught.
Sorry. So yes, I won't interrupt her again. I mean, I probably will. The music though. Previously, when I played the music here, I would stream it like I'm doing now. I would pull up a tab of my channel and stream it through StreamYard, and it would compress it and take away. And I'd say it every time. It sounds much better when you listen to it direct from the source. So Joseph Kane, Lumpy Oatmeal, kindly worked out. I'm sure it's way out of my wheelhouse, but Joey managed it, how to turn my clips of my songs that it's a whole thing. The video that I have before I put it into YouTube, he turned them into MP4s, and then he has been kindly, and I'm so grateful, uploading them into our StreamYard so we can play them directly from the StreamYard. So it's sounding as it should sound because it's not being pressed through different things. So it sounds that way when you listen to the songs directly from YouTube, but not when you push them through StreamYard. Okay, Dr. Ramani, sorry, I'll zip it. Yikes.
Taught or that you were never given permission to do. But once you set the boundaries anywhere, it may be directly with the narcissistic person, it may be with someone or something else, and your boundary setting is observed by the narcissistic and by a narcissistic person in your life. But when your boundaries are observed, you setting boundaries is observed by a narcissistic person, they will likely tell you that you're being controlling. And obviously that's a bit of a projection. So let's lay this out as a bit of a scenario, right? You are in a narcissistic relationship. Let's say it's with a parent, right? But you can substitute anyone in there. The parent expects you in a very entitled manner to keep doing things for them as soon as they ask you to do them. It is eating into your time and making your life
Pausing again, just a trigger warning, talking about parents.
Difficult, and you're very busy. You have tried in gentle and appropriate ways to push them off, try to get siblings to help, or done what they needed in a rush. But more often than not, you do what they need to get done, but you're getting more resentful. Finally, one day, after taking so much time to do the many frivolous things that the narcissistic parent expects you to do, when they expect you to do them, with little awareness of how this is affecting you, you tell the parent, hey, I can't do this every day. I can do these things like once a week, and that's it. Anything else is going to just have to wait till the next week. And please also don't call me during work hours because it's quite disruptive. And then you do that, good boundaries, and the parent accuses you of being controlling, cold, and maybe even manipulative. It can be quite startling to have someone tell you that you are controlling after years of walking on eggshells and then finally making clear what you would think would be clear to any self-aware person. But there's the rub. They aren't self-aware. That's the issue. You, me, all of us, we all exist at their need and at their whim. They are delusional enough to think that we are the problem, that they are always right, and that we have no right to set a boundary. And if we are, then we're being controlling. Narcissistic people pathologize and shame qualities in others, which make their lives more difficult or pick away at their sense of grandiosity and entitlement. If they are the greatest and all powerful, well, then how could somebody actually set boundaries on them? I mean, nobody sets boundaries with the king, right? If you from an early age saw the message that setting boundaries was a bad thing, and then attempted to set boundaries, and are then told that you are being controlling, it can discourage you from wanting to set them or from setting them at all. Narcissistic people find that shaming and calling you crazy works. And these comments often will stop you from engaging in the behavior that's inconveniencing them. So it's a really, really clever manipulation, isn't it? Setting boundaries.
Pause. Doesn't have to just be in childhood. One could find themselves being conditioned even in late adult life, or any point in your life, that a certain person who is important or influential or in your life, full stop, kind of does all of these things to you, or some of them, when you set boundaries, that you become kind of terrified, because nobody wants, like, particularly if you're a sensitive person, a highly sensitive person, an empath, or you just don't like being treated like shit. You can easily go from being someone who is good with setting boundaries to being terrified to do so, even with one particular person, because the backlash, whatever it looks like, may well be terrifying. Got a song for that in a little bit. Just saying.
Boundaries with narcissistic folks will not result in them changing their behavior or honoring the boundaries. But it will perhaps result in you opening your eyes wider to what you're seeing. I know that some people don't set them because they are afraid of the narcissistic person's rage, or they are afraid of losing the narcissistic person from their life. The narcissistic relationship is often about all of us holding back because we are afraid they will disappear if we ask too much or set a boundary. That is your work, because this is an unhealthy space. And for all of us to work on unpacking our trauma bonds to help diminish the power of the narcissistic folks in our lives. As a result, many people in narcissistic relationships, often in order to survive, will find themselves immersed in denial. By not setting boundaries, you don't then have to see how bad the narcissistic relationship is. But once you do set the boundary and witness their reaction, it's a painful and stark reminder of how dysfunctional the relationship is. It can be easier to not set the boundaries at all and remain in denial. Because once you set the boundaries and see what it really is about, the grief can be overwhelming. But that, in the long run, is not good for you. So with boundary setting, start small. Start practicing boundary setting with the healthier people in your life who will be willing to respect the boundaries, and then start building up those boundaries in other areas. It can be painful to witness what happens in the relationships when you do set boundaries. But even if you stay, at least you will do so with your eyes wide open and not believing that this is going to change.
Yes, Dr.
And no,
Romney. Yes.
setting an appropriate boundary is not controlling,
Boom.
no matter what they say to you.
Boom.
We're back to our proverb series. And today's proverb is, he who sups with the devil should have a long spoon. Ever hear that? Well,
No,
before
I
we get
hadn't,
to
but I like
that, and also, if you're new to this channel, please subscribe and join this magnificent community of followers.
Oh,
But
no.
let's take on this proverb.
There's subtitles on
He
the
who
face.
sups with the devil should have a long spoon. Now, again, like I said, more and more of the proverbs are being
I'm
sent
so
in by
fucking
all of you.
professional.
And you know how what I love about the proverb series is some of them are on point, some of them are actually bad guidance. This one happens to be on point. This line about long spoons and devils originated from Chaucer's Canterbury Tales. I guess Chaucer knew something about boundaries, because that's really what this is about. The meaning of this proverb is pretty clear. If you're going to fraternize and spend time with bad people, you want to be able to keep your distance and not get too close. So, really, it's about boundaries and realistic expectations. It begs the question of whether a person can keep narcissistic people in their lives by just keeping them at a distance. And I would argue that the answer to that question is yes. Now, as an exercise, I want you to take a minute, pause this video, and jot down a list of the narcissistic people in your life. Think about how many of these where you might actually be able to have a mildly functional relationship if you just don't have to rely on them. You can just get what you need and get out, and don't personalize what they say and do. Obviously, a spouse or a partner or a friend may not qualify because you need them. But there are, in fact, other less impactful narcissistic people in your life. We all have them. I did this exercise and I recognize that there are these kinds of narcissistic folks in my life
Of
where I
course,
can see
Steve.
what they
I'm glad to
are
have you here.
and what they
Always.
are about, and need them professionally or for some other reason, or it would disrupt other very important relationships in my life if I blew up the relationships with these narcissists. So I don't ever let them get too close to me. I never share anything with them about myself. I do not share my vulnerabilities with them. I get in, I get out, and it's done. So pause the video and make a note of those folks. And then you can restart, get to the rest of this video. Because that's the long spoon. There are too many narcissistic folks in the world out there for any of us to realistically live a narcissist free life. Unless you are able to stay locked in your house with a nice pet and have a few friends and don't meet their friends
It sounds like
and don't
heaven.
have to work or go to the store ever, then perhaps. But the rest of us are having to sometimes sup with the devil, and we need long spoons. The key is to identify the toxic patterns as early as possible. The earlier you identify them, the better you can start taking out your long spoon. You can keep it tight and then not spin off into something deeper with them. You can pay attention to any trauma bonded patterns like justification or trying harder to win them over. You keep that long spoon with you at all times. So when you do have to sup with them, you can keep things in a way so they don't do harm through their invalidation and their gaslighting.
Gaslighting, huh? Yikes. Ducking Margaret says, learn to set healthy boundaries for yourself. Learning to set healthy boundaries for yourself can be like retraining or rewiring your brain. Absolutely. We get conditioned to expect certain responses or reactions from people over our lifetime, and whether you come back from that or whether you further and further be more timid rather than, I don't know, being a bit brave, or maybe grey rocking those people and making better choices or as to who you have in your life. But absolutely. And then Ducking says, take notes from Dr. Romani and write key frames on index cards. Oh, that sounds like a lovely thing. Responses, and carry around index cards with you to refer to. That's a great idea. Phrases. No, phrases. Off key phrases. I like frames. Same. Phrases on index cards. Or maybe if you're a phone person, you could have a note, an app, like a note in your phone on the Notes app. You could have things on your fridge. You could, I don't know. That's a really good idea. Yes. Dr. Ramani is the tits. You all are the tits.
Now, this comes in most handy in the workplace. The ability to sup with the devil using that long spoon may be the only way that people may survive most narcissistic workplaces. Now, I got to tell you, I have yet to see a narcissist-free workplace in any place with more than a few employees. So it's about figuring out who the players are and how not to get burned, how to remain politic and get your needs met, but not get played. It does mean coming into situations in a rather cynical manner, having to assess people and situations and watch them carefully.
Hi,
And
Steph.
maybe
Good to
shorten
see
your
you.
spoon a little as trust is built, but you can do that cautiously. I find that when supping with the devil, that supping with a long spoon can work. Part of the trick is to avoid any optional conversation or activity, particularly in the workplace. The meeting is done. You don't get sucked into idle chit chat. You don't fall into the gossip swamp.
Yes, girl.
You don't share secrets on a business trip. You definitely avoid happy hour and you keep it tight at workplace social events. Forgive my language here.
Love you
but
too,
don't
girl.
shit where you eat.
Don't shit with you eat. Wait.
Now,
honey.
another place that's supping with
Dr. Ramani said, excuse my expression, but don't shit you where you eat. Imagine how horrified Dr. Ramani would be if she sat in on one of our streams. Yikes. And she just said shit once. In all of the things we've watched of Dr. Ramani, she's never sworn. She just said shit and excused herself beforehand. Aspirational.
and you keep it tight at workplace social events. Forgive my language here, but don't shit where you eat. Now, another place that supping with a long spoon comes in handy is when you meet friends of friends or partners or friends of a partner or friends of a family. You may like the friend or the partner or the family member, but they may bring you into proximity of some toxic people. Again, you always need to keep that long spoon and not fall for the idea like, well, I really love my friend, so their friend must be cool. Nope. In the narcissistic world we live in now, you have to be on your toes for a while until you slowly build trust. It's an exhausting way to live, but such is the world we live in. Because narcissism seems to be creeping into so many areas of our lives, we need tools to find a way to coexist with the toxic people in our midst. It's naive to think you can eliminate all of them. Things like boundaries, taking our time to get to know someone and not doubting our instincts, heeding the red flags, and obviously carrying long spoons. We can't live in a narcissist-free world, but we can find workarounds and ways of protecting ourselves.
Fuck around and find out,
and
Steph.
always
Fuck around and
keep a few
find
of
out.
those long spoons in your back pocket. Thanks again, and please keep sending in those proverbs. They're great. I love reading them, and as you can see, one after the other, they're turning into some really great content.
Thanks, Dr. Ramani. Love you, girl. Let's cleanse the palate for a moment. Thanks, Joey. Another song. You guessed it. So many's. I have so many's.
Brave but scared, truth revealed. Does any of this matter? Fate, it's sealed. The battlefield. Step now into the fray. Twisting and turning, inevitable. Resets and yearning on fuck with a bowl. Follow your instincts, your intuition. Deceit and betrayal, they orbit the sun. Humans, we are perplexing. Wonder about all that flaxing. Remind me again how we came to be friends. Your presence is just so vexing. Twisting and turning, inevitable. Resets and yearning, unfuck with the bowl. Follow your instinct, your intuition. Deceit and betrayal, they all your instinct, your intuition. Deceit and betrayal, they orbit the sun. Peace is the goal, we bearing our soul. Tyranny and projection. So who will it be if it isn't me? Delivering protection. Brave but scared, truth revealed. Does any of this matter? Fate, it's sealed. The battlefield. Step now into the fray. Twisting and turning, inevitable. Receipts and yearning, unfuckable. Follow your instinct, your intuition. Deceit and betrayal, they orbit the sun. Fate, it's sealed. The battlefield. Step now into the fray.
Oh, love, 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 love. Brave but scared, huh? Brave but scared. Setting boundaries. Brave but scared. But I'm going to do it. We're going to do it. Big, small, everything in between. Unfuck with the ball. Right? Right? Okay. Dr. Ramani. 9 signs of poor boundaries. Oh, no, this isn't Dr. Ramani. Right. Still good. I picked it for a reason. I'm sure. Yes. Med Circle. Oh, it is Dr. Ramani. I knew it. God.
Hi, everyone.
Keep
It's
reading,
Dr.
Emily.
Romney, and today I'm going to walk through 9 signs of poor boundaries that you need to know. Don't forget to subscribe below and hit that bell so you always know when we post more videos like this one. Boundaries affect every way we go through life, and it's often something we were never taught to set, right? In fact, in many ways, a lot of how we raise children in our world goes against setting boundaries. We tell kids that you have to go hug someone where it may not be consensual, or the child doesn't want to hug that person, or you have to follow rules that don't necessarily make sense for all kids. So we actually kind of teach children to kind of squelch that sense of boundaries. We're also never taught how to set them. Many people, when they set boundaries, they feel guilty, like, oh, if I set this boundary, this person's going to feel bad, and then I feel bad. I'm set.
Pausing to say yes, Princey, yes. It really helps. And Princey, I've been meaning to say for ages, thank you so much for dropping comments on my music when you listen to it. Comments, engagement on these videos after the fact, so when they're no longer live streams, or my music helps push it into the algorithm, and so more people will see the music, because YouTube goes, oh, people like this, they're commenting, they're engaging, the creator is engaging back. So wherever you watch anything of mine, I'd love for you to drop a comment, even if it's just a couple of emotes, and I'll generally always try to reply back. Sometimes it takes me a little while. Don't always get notifications, but yes. That, thank you. Oh, wrong screen. Thanks, Dr. Ramani. Let's keep going.
Setting the boundary, so we don't even feel like we have the right to. And even if we can get past the idea that we do have the right to set boundaries, we'll often feel bad if we set them.
Wait,
but poor
subtitles.
Boundaries can really
Closed
impact
captions.
our lives in many ways. It can put us at risk for entering into toxic relationships.
Could be worse.
It can put people at risk for dangerous situations. It can also result in people sort of taking on more than they need to, taking on more caregiving responsibilities, more work responsibilities, in a way that can really take a toll on both their physical and their mental health. And there was also psychological fallout from poor boundaries. When a person has poor boundaries, they will often blame themselves, even for a very negative or even a problematic or traumatic interaction, saying, well, it's my fault, I had poor boundaries, which can not only result in self-blame and shame, but a whole cascade of negative emotions associated with that. So let's talk about some signs. Let's talk about the 9 signs of poor boundaries, because I think if people have a sense of, I don't even know what poor boundaries look like, we might be able to help people sort of navigate these waters. Number 1 is that a person finds that they can't make a decision. And the reason they can't make a decision is often because they feel torn. They feel torn between sort of overextending themselves or doing what other people want, and what they really want to do. And
Pausing to say, I feel like we're probably going to reach our capacity max of Dr. Ramani, because it's been a lot to think about. It can be a little triggering. So we won't play the last one that I had, the last video that I had queued up. I'll put it in the description box so you can watch it yourself if you'd like after the fact. So there's about 23 minutes of this because we've been going for 2 hours 10. So we'll do about 2.5 hours. Val, no, you're still white. God, YouTube, do better.
And so I guess the fantasy in that case is really that maybe someone else is going to step in and make this decision. But when you can't make a decision, it's also much more difficult to set that line in the sand and say, actually, I can't come to the movies tonight. I have a deadline, or I won't be able to stay for dessert because da da da.
Sorry, relevant example. I think I've told you guys this before, you guys, shorties. I used to be the perennial people pleaser in terms of saying yes to social engagements, going out, going to a party, back when I God, the hell of it all. And then I'd get to, I think it's quite common with introverts, and that's me, surprisingly, introverts and empaths and neurodivergents, that we say yes to something. Seems like kind of a good idea at the time when we have sufficient spoons. We're going to do a stream next weekend on the spoon theory. I've written it down to remind myself. So I used to always say yes, and then I'd be like, oh, I don't want to go. And I'd either bail, ghost them and not go at all. I'd bow out with a phone call or a message, depending on how long ago it was. Or I'd go and I'd hate it. I'd be like, ugh, and it'd use all of my social energy and more. It was just excruciating. It just dragged me emotionally and mentally. So about maybe 9 years ago, I realized that was not worth it. And my personal sense of well-being and conserving my social energy and my mental health and my anxiety levels was far more important than being a yes man, being a sycophant, right? So I made a very clear distinction and decision to from then on say from the jump, when I was invited to something, I would say, thank you, I would love to, but I know that it'll get to the time and I'll really not feel like it. So what I'm going to say is now, thank you so much. I'm not going to come, but thank you. It's me, not you. And thank you for inviting me. And it felt so much better. It was liberating to set that boundary about something that really deeply affected me, and that I was doing, what society expected, what people expected, people pleasing. To not do that anymore was, chef's fucking kiss. Never look back. I'm just like, nah. My bosses have called me for the last 3 years trying to get me to our work Christmas party. I'm just like, yeah, no, I'm not coming. And they're like, oh, come on now. Like the people say, come on, it'll be fun. I'll be like, no, and like give some reasons. But ultimately, regardless if they offered workarounds, I'll be like, I'm not coming. It's just not my thing. Thank you, but no. I don't want to come. Best. Follow me for more life hacks.
Or I won't be able to take on that extra piece of writing because
bed.
I have to get the other report
Matilda.
done first.
Mwah.
So that's a decision. But if a person thinks, I don't know what's going to happen if I make this decision, or something's kind of bad's going to happen, a person then may hold back on making decisions and then may repetitively have this issue around decision making. The second sort of sign of poor boundaries is somebody who is a people pleaser. Now, people pleasing is a massive risk for all kinds of poor boundaries. And it's how a lot of people paint themselves into a corner. People pleasing is exactly what it sounds like. It's giving in against what a person actually wants and doing what other people want. It's denying one's own self-interest. It's denying one's own wants, desires, you name it. So when a person is people pleasing, they're literally just catering to what other people want. When I've worked clinically with people pleasers, one thing that I have really sort of focused on is that be aware of the dynamic. But also there's sometimes some secondary gain from being a people pleaser, right? Because when you're a people pleaser, you're the nice person. And you get to maintain that identity of, oh, that person's
She almost
cool. They're
said
so
shit.
nice. They just go along. And
Romany.
it's sort of like this weird kind of strangely manipulative dance. You people please. The people who are being pleased are saying, aren't they great? Aren't they wonderful? So they're reinforcing something that's actually harming the people pleaser. And the people pleaser's buy-in, the people pleaser person's buy-in, is that they get to walk through the world as the nice, accommodating person. So some of the work in therapy goes a lot deeper. It's saying, why is it so important for you to be viewed as this person who always goes along, who always makes people's lives easier? And it's about
pausing to say, fuck yes, Dr. Romany, I love you so much. 1410, not even 1010. Sorry about the pause.
sort of breaking down some of those schemas, the identity around that, understanding the history around that. Because when we people please, we set terrible boundaries. We will stay out later than we want. We will do more than we want. We'll take on all kinds of additional roles and responsibilities that can really put us in a sort of an uncomfortable, again, potentially toxic situation because we just keep trying to please that other person. I think that when a person is a people pleaser and they found an audience of people who are willing to suck up all their people pleasing, that also gets to be, again, a sort of a toxic dance that the people who are being pleased are saying, well, this is great. I don't have to question it. Word to everyone out there who is being people pleased, you're on the receiving end of it. It's not our job to hold other people's boundaries, but it is part of our role as human beings to be empathic and have compassion. So if we do sense that someone is really overextending themselves in our service, to really say, okay, you need to please step back. You've been doing so much. It can be a very...
Interestingly, when you do that, often people who are uncomfortable with boundaries for themselves, insist, no, it's good. I'm good. I was like, come on now. I'm giving you the door. Like, I can see that you need that door. Take it. Like, I love that. I'd love you to assert your own boundaries, but if you're not going to articulate them, let me give you that option to help you feel more comfortable with it.
Reciprocal and supportive dance that way. But ultimately, it is on all of us to know that if we are people pleasers, that really is going to negatively affect and erode boundaries. Another sort of an extension, sort of a third sign that people have poor boundaries is sort of an extension of the people pleasing stuff, but it's people who become so overly focused on other people that they actually become exhausted and fatigued in their own life. So basically, they're taking care of everybody else's stuff,
Steve.
needs, schedules, whatever.
See you next weekend, darling.
And they themselves are not
See you
taking care
around.
of themselves. They're sort of completely depleting themselves. Now, this gets tricky in terms of a boundary issue because we have to look at even things like, for example, caregiving burdens, and especially when people have young children. It's hard to set a boundary and sort of roll up to your kid and say, well, I'm setting a boundary, darling, and I'm not going to change your diaper. Like, it doesn't work that way. And so but what it does mean is that person who has the responsibility of very young children may need to set those boundaries, those caregiving boundaries in other areas. For example, they don't need to feel the need to put a 5-course dinner on the table, or they don't need to do sort of extra things for other family members who could be doing them themselves or even in the workplace. Before I move on to number 4, I want to let you know I have a full MedCircle series on many mental health conditions that may lead to poor boundaries in relationships.
We'll watch that.
These include hours of videos in which I explain the causes and the risks of these mental health conditions, the signs, the symptoms, how to get the right diagnosis and treatment, and much, much more. Please check it out at watch.medcircle.com or in the links below this video.
So slow.
People who have poor boundaries often do exhaust themselves because they're doing for so many other people.
You're the best.
And once we even pop it out of the caregiving realm, just to sort of normalize an experience that many people have, is that sense of a person thinking, well, I have to do because I'm climbing up the ladder. I'm trying to win someone over. I'm trying to, win this boss over or get this opportunity. I want to show hustle. And then that person in their hustle may be doing and doing and doing and doing. And the boss or the colleague, whoever, may be taking and taking and taking. And the boundaries are getting worse and worse, mostly because the person thinks it's a means to an end. but then ends up getting really exhausted, really depleted, and it can really, really take a toll on their lives. So it's just about being aware if somebody's sort of completely exhausting themselves while they're doing everything in the service of others. That's another big sign of poor boundaries. Another sign that somebody has poor boundaries is that they have sort of lost their sense of self. When
Wait,
a person has poor boundaries, they
pause.
often sort of really start not
This might be triggering for some people. Dr. Ramani is going to talk about parents, among other things, but parents who give their acts of service, their love language of being everything for their children, and their children being everything for them in their life, and that when that all, when the birds fly the nest, that some people can find themselves feeling very empty and wishing that they set some boundaries, some clear lines of self-care along the way. So if that's a bit much for you, that's what she's going to talk about for the next few minutes, 5 or so. Okay,
not only
maybe
absorbing
not quite
roles in
5.
other people's lives, but almost sort of start absorbing other people's lives. Like other people's bad days become your bad days. Other people's losses become your losses. And a person will say, I don't even know who I am again. I feel like I exist only for my children, or I exist only for my partner, or I only exist for this job. And they've
That's
lost
okay.
them.
In the clouds,
Who are you?
step away.
What do you stand
Come back
for?
in 5.
People with poor boundaries tend to lose that sense of self, because as their boundaries get encroached upon, they really are so living their lives, not only in the service of others, but almost like, again, absorbing their identities, so that their own identity kind of gets lost in the shuffle. This is a really sort of a dangerous precedent. And you'll see this again, where I've often seen this repeated, is in parents, where they'll say,
But
I became
Michelle,
so about my kids and everything, my
regret,
kids'
but
schedules, my
also
kids' needs, my kids' meals, my kids' rooms, my kids' this, my kids' that. Well, just in case none of you knew this, these kids actually do grow up. And if you do it right, they grow up and they make their own lives. And at that point, many people will say, I don't even know who I am anymore. So there's a risk in that. And that may not even happen in child rearing, though I think it happens in a very sort of intense way there. It can happen in a relationship where a person is all about, I'm going to be for them and I'm going to support their career. I'm going to take care of them. That a person turns around one day and says, well, I certainly got them to where they needed to, but who am I? Can happen in a job as well, having that losing one's sense of self in a job because the job becomes so all absorbing that a person doesn't maintain their social connection.
for me, when I was a competitive bodybuilder for 8 years, and I was also for the last couple of years of my bodybuilding career, I was also working in a brothel as a sex worker in an establishment. And I used to say, hi, I'm Sky. I compete in bodybuilding competitions. And I looked that way. It was everything in my life. I trained every single day for hours on end. I lived and breathed it. It was my identity. I didn't do anything else. So I immersed myself completely. I had no sense of self. And when I retired from bodybuilding because the perpetual scrutiny of one's physique was becoming a little too much for me, it was really fucking with my like, it's hard to have good self-esteem when nothing's ever good enough externally, and I wasn't loving myself necessarily internally, particularly when my family had all abandoned me because of that job. So when I retired from bodybuilding, and I no longer could say that, and I was really lost. I felt this emptiness, this grief of my sense of self. My identity was completely wrapped up in being a bodybuilder, and it took me a long time to find some other identity. Years, probably only recently.
Their hobbies, their interests, they become the job and subsequently lose their sense of self. So it's a real sign that a person may not have very good boundaries because they've literally lost their sense of self to not being able to maintain these boundaries more carefully. Sixth sort of sense, another sixth sense, a sixth indicator, another way we know that people may have poor boundaries is oversharing. Now, this is such a tough one because I'm sure a lot of you are thinking, Dr. Ramani, how much sharing is oversharing? Sharing is it's not an either or. Sharing is almost like a process that should be done over time and is predicated on trust. So when a person overshares, they may, for example, share information with somebody where they have not sufficiently established trust and potentially shared something that they should not be sharing. It could be inappropriate to share because it could be sharing the confidences of or secrets of another person that could make themselves vulnerable. That they could be sharing information that could put them in a really disadvantageous place in terms of a job situation. One of the reasons that has been suggested that people overshare is that they may feel sort of overwhelmed or dominated in a situation. And to them, the overshare might be a way to sort of establish an attachment need or a connection with the other person. And that idea of if I give, and we'll also see this as a pattern in people actually who have histories of trauma. And we know that boundaries are an issue for people with histories of trauma, is to go in there and lay out too much too quickly. I am the first one out there who is a big fan of emotional vulnerability and sharing. But the thing I'm a bigger fan of is being discerning and making sure we're good gatekeepers for ourselves. If a relationship is trusting and it's evolving over time and getting better, as time goes on, we might feel that, oh, I'm trusting this person more. I might be able to share this next thing with them. Heck, even in therapy, I don't expect people to come in on day one and boom, drop the cargo hold in the room. I'm fine with it if it happens. It is therapy. There's confidentiality and protections in that space. But I also very much appreciate it if people say, I need to learn you. I need to get to know you a little bit. And that's fine too. But when it comes to our social relationships or other workplace relationships or relationships that don't have those sorts of those protections of sort of built-in boundaries through things
Fuck
like
yeah, boundaries.
confidentiality and all
Fuck
of that.
yeah, boundaries, Sarah.
Oversharing is often a sign of poor boundaries because you're going in there so quickly. Not only can it potentially.
So, sorry, Dr. Ramani, pause. Feel this in my bones. I know lots of you in chat feel this in your bones also. I am an oversharer to the nth degree. You might have noticed. CEG, my last time on the microphone. I do think that previously, conversationally, I was prone to oversharing with strangers, and people seem to feel, wow, thank you so much for sharing. I'd be like, honestly, like with respect, I would have told anybody. I have no problem. These days, I'm more able to set those boundaries for myself and not do that oversharing. My oversharing here has a definite purpose. It's to literally share with you my experiences, as extreme as some of them may be compared to what you all have lived, but not all of them. Some, but not all. I don't think there's many former sex workers in the chat, but I know there's a couple. So it's different. It's intentional for me these days, and I have a goal in life. And a purpose with sharing my stories. But these days, in just general conversation, I find myself better able to, like, I still haven't told my offsider the whole pedo pirate thing. Like, why would you? For starters, that's a whole can of worms I'm not keen to open. I didn't tell him about the blind side, the breakup, for weeks, because I'm like, I don't need to share that right now. And I think she's talking about oversharing as being a trauma response. Facts. And also for some neurodivergence, we just don't, there's some filter issues with what's socially appropriate. Well, thank you, Valerie. Yes. Oh, well, I want to share with you all my stuff. That's the whole purpose of the channel. I think if you're closed off in this kind of space, you would wonder why I wasn't being so open, and you all wouldn't feel comfortable to be so open, relatively open in our chat and in this space as you would in any other, because we offer that safe, really transparent, kind, supportive, non-judgmental space. But thank you, Valerie. Anyway, that oversharing. Sorry, Dr. Ramani. Love you, girl. Beautiful with any facial expression.
Potentially make another person uncomfortable, but it also could be putting the oversharer in a position of tremendous vulnerability and might make it harder for them to stay safe in a given relationship situation. And what we do know about people who overshare, and then that oversharing comes back to bite them.
Facts. CEG, the trolls. No, the flying monkeys, they're not trolls. They're just vile humans, if you can call them humans. This platform, this channel, I have no secrets, Laura. None. Like none. So good luck doxing me, but they can and have tried to weaponize my vulnerabilities against me as ammunition, right? It doesn't work because I've already worked through all of these things. Absolute acceptance. I have no shame. I have no regrets. I have a couple of regrets, but even those I've worked through, and you can't turn back time, right? So some people, back to that honesty in difficult conversations from the very start of the stream, though, because most people, I don't think that's an over representation. I think most people find it very difficult to be honest with themselves about things about themselves. So when someone else, like you, Laura, or like me, are so brutally honest about everything, warts and all, it makes those folk who have skeletons in the closet, whether they're huge or minor, and who actually can't be honest with themselves about their own failings, choices in life, pathways, whatever, situation, whatever, they can't deal with it because they're so not used to being honest with themselves that they find honesty in others very confronting and they don't like it, right? Right.
They tend to blame themselves for another person's misuse of the information. At the end of the day, if somebody harms you with the information you overshared, that responsibility is on the person who harmed you.
Anyway.
But many
Thank you so
people will
much.
find
You're the
themselves
best.
blaming themselves,
Love
and
you,
that
darling.
oversharing is also a real sign of poor boundaries. Another sign of poor boundaries may be that a person is getting resentful and annoyed that they're overextending themselves,
Colors.
but the other people aren't. And that may very well be because those other people have either A, they may have better boundaries, but B, they may also be sort of advantaging the fact that another person doesn't have good boundaries and they're benefiting from that. But it can, again, when a person has poor boundaries, it can really sort of pump up a sense of resentment, a sense of frustration.
Yeah, because they look at people who are able to set boundaries like, that's fucked, man. I'm just here getting walked over like a doormat, and you all are there asserting your boundaries and maintaining them. Yikes. Colors. It's an interesting and a bold, and I love your flat earth beliefs. I love it. I love your resilience to the ridicule. Not from me. I think I have a lot of I have a boundless respect for you, Colors, but most of it came from when we didn't know each other very well, and you shared your flat earth beliefs on that other channel, Adam Drives Helen. Yuck. And you were so good-natured, and I mean, I'm not sure how you felt on the inside, but the way you handled the ribbing, the ridicule, the not necessarily, I don't think, from Adam, but from those folks. And since, I was just like, this girl, like I loved you so much, and I love you even more every minute of every day, because you stick by your beliefs and fuck everybody else. And I'm sorry that you get so much hate. And I think I think it's delightful. And that sounds like I'm being condescending. I'm not. Like, delights me that you are so able to not give a fuck what people say or think about your beliefs. Amazing, Colors. Amazing. We could all aspire to be like you. Be more like Colors, everyone.
And instead of stepping back and saying, I'm not maintaining my boundaries. And so, yes, of course, I feel taken advantage of, that you could connect those two. And that should be sort of a call to arms to really start setting those boundaries. But a person who feels that, I keep getting sucked into things, I'm really frustrated. Why am I the only one who's sort of having to do everything?
Sorry, Dr. Ramani, pause again. So I had a huge transition for myself. She's talking about, doing things for other people. And I used to say, And I'm still a little bit like this, but I used to be like, I'm very easygoing until I'm not. But that was me, like, just, yeah, no, it's cool. No worries. Like, no worries. Yeah, no. It's all good. Yeah, no worries. That was a couple of years ago. But I used to basically say, like, you can walk all over me, man. I'll be the doormat until you wipe your fucking shit on me. Then I'm fucking done. It's a hard no. And that, and it was a hard no. I would not lose my shit, but I would assert a hard boundary, either verbally or no contact with that person, whatever the thing was. The end. And people would find that such a stark contrast between the no worries, no, like, it's cool, like, it's good, no, I don't mind. I don't mind at all. Like, I don't mind. It's cool, I don't mind. So what the fuck? Who's this Lisa? She's fucking crazy, man. She was all good and then she wasn't. So now I assert boundaries along the way, that then, and I do them in increments, small through to massive, and I don't get nearly, well, people still think I'm crazy, and that's fine. Sounds like a them problem, but that.
Everything, and that relates to another sign of poor boundaries I'm going to talk about, that can really leave a person wondering, like, oh, this feels very unfair. But if you are feeling that in your relationships, that you sort of feel really annoyed and you're not able to identify it, but you do feel sort of a sense of resentment and frustration, that could be a sign of poor boundaries. And especially when that's not being reciprocated, and it often isn't. Like I said, for those two reasons I gave, either other people do have better boundaries, or they're benefiting so much from your lack of boundaries that they're thinking, well, why should I stick my neck
they're
out?
like second
And all of this
command ranking.
relates to another sign of poor boundaries, which is passive aggressiveness. It relates to that sense of resentment. Passive aggressive people do not communicate directly about needs, wants, disappointments, and frustrations. So they may sort of do things like, common passive aggressive technique would be to stonewall and not communicate. A person doing that might actually say, I'm setting a boundary, I'm not responding to them. But that's not going to be appropriate if something's already underway. People are already in the process of making arrangements, or it's a workplace situation. And then a person who has not had good boundaries gets frustrated. And then the passive aggressive play at that point might be, I'm not talking about this and I'm not doing this. But that's not going to work if you've already agreed to do something. Other sorts of passive aggressive kinds of plays might be barbs that are sort of like, well, it must be easy to live your life since you have, since you don't have any responsibilities, kind of thing. And that another person's like, well, I do have responsibilities. I'm doing them. And it's not on me that you're taking on so many more.
Living large.
That it doesn't come out as a person in a healthy way saying, this is hard for me because I'm carrying a lot more of this load. Can we figure out a way to divide these tasks in a more equitable way and make it very direct?
Love
the passive
your voice
part
colors.
of passive aggressive is that a person is not dealing with the problem that's on the table, is not communicating about it directly. And that makes sense, because people with poor boundaries communicating directly is a struggle for them. Asking for what they need or want, or setting a line where they say, I can't do more of this, that is direct. It's not passive. The other person on the other side of the passive aggressive communication feels almost sort of ganged up on. They'll think, why is this person coming at me? And as though that the person who didn't set the boundaries is frustrated, and may even be frustrated at themselves.
Maiden.
So the passive aggressive piece almost feels like a projection to the other.
Maiden. I feel like the inference there is that wait, where's it gone? The inference there feels a little bit like that the contrast of colors being sane is that the other person on the screen maybe wasn't, and that was me. Is it me? Am I crazy? No, it's getting windy here. I'm not crazy. I'm joking.
The other person.
I'm getting a little bit crazy because we've been streaming for about 69 hours today.
And too. So if you find yourself behaving in a passive aggressive manner, it may very well be that you haven't set good boundaries. And what's interesting is that may not even be that you're not setting good boundaries with the person in front of you. It could be, for example, a person who's overextending themselves at work through poor boundaries is then passive aggressive, for example, with family members or friends, because they're so frustrated about what's happening there. They'll say like, oh my gosh, well, thanks for starting drinks without me, passive aggressive. And they may go on to say, am I the only one here who's working? No, you're not. Your friends have jobs too. But when it's those kinds of communications,
Mag, mate.
that person's frustrated about work, where they're not setting boundaries.
Yes.
And then they're coming and lashing out
I
or
love,
sort of
wait,
lashing
pause, sorry, Dr.
passively
Romney.
at the people in their social.
Oh, she looks beautiful there. That's the best pause I've ever done for Dr. Ramani. Gorgeous. Hi, Mag. I always found it hard to say no to people, especially friends. Yes, there's that obligatory kind of, particularly the dynamic that you've sort of, wait, Joey, we all crazy, boss. Yes, we all crazy here. So I understand that completely, and it's very hard to change those behaviors in groups of people who expect you based on the past, how you've always been, to start setting boundaries. But we can start small, and if they don't like it, well, maybe they just wanted a doormat. They wanted a people pleaser. They wanted someone who would just do the shit and not ever push back. And now, not anymore, mother truckers. Lol. I love that for you. That's amazing. Success. Bravo.
Social purview, because maybe they don't even feel like they can safely communicate about that in that other situation. Another sign of poor boundaries is a
Oh,
person doing things and not setting
yeah. Well,
boundaries
people say shit.
because they're afraid of being rejected and they're afraid
Oh,
of
there's still
abandonment.
Russian shit.
This is a very, very common pattern in people who have poor boundaries. They think if I don't do this, then these people aren't going to show up anymore. Then this person is going to leave my
Yes,
life.
Brit.
And it's a very destabilizing fear, because what happens is,
Boom, turn it into merch. Make it in, write it down. You've outgrown them 100%, 1 quadrillion%, Brit. This is my theme for my, like, the last couple of months. Hi, by the way, you guys watching. Not you guys, chat, the good lurkers, the ones of you who are just watching on TV, not chatting. The other few, I mean, keep listening. Maybe you'll learn something. A couple of them dipped. Oh, 4 of them dipped. Oh, I can see you. That's awkward for you. Like, honestly, I've outgrown all that shit. I was never in that shit, but I've outgrown it now. I got no time for that. I'm not interested. It is my mantra, Britt. It is. And they have no power. Like, I am playing, man. Peace out. Bye-bye. You do you over there in the muck. I'm just going to be over here in my palace.
the person will have poor boundaries, but in a way, those poor boundaries give them a sense of control, right? They can keep overextending themselves and potentially getting ahead of or avoiding this sort of fear, even if it's a unlikely fear.
Nick, CEG, my now 13 episode playlist on this whole subject. Plenty. We're doing our best, man. I'm trying to turn this shit into a fucking worldwide thing. Dr. Rahman and I together. Yes, more education. That's what we're doing. We be learning together all kinds of stuff about narcissistic twats.
Fear of being rejected or of being abandoned. And so they won't have good boundaries, and they'll
Thank
keep
God.
doing what is asked of them to avoid that. Now, this can play out in lots of ways. It could play out sexually, a person sort of giving in to sexual behaviors, practices, and asks that they don't feel comfortable with. It really isn't consensual, but they do it because they're afraid of
Definitely
being
wine
abandoned
o'clock,
by
by
a
the way,
partner.
chat.
Or a person
Fuck.
agreeing to do unpleasant
Like,
tasks in a
it's
social
time, let's go
situation, in a
walk.
workplace, so they won't be rejected. We've seen that in styles that, for example, have been labeled dependent personality
4
styles.
more minutes.
Not a fan of the term, but it's the sense of a person who feels that
Talk over the
I won't be
sorry,
able to
Dr. Ramani.
place, so they won't be rejected. We've seen that in styles that, for example, have been labeled dependent personality styles. I'm not a fan of the term, but it's the sense of a person who feels that I won't be able to function in the world alone if people leave me. So I'm going to agree to whatever they're asking me to do, or do things that I don't want to do, or eat foods I don't want to eat, or go places I don't want to go, because I don't want to be left and then have to take care of myself, which I don't feel like I can do. The fear of rejection and the fear of abandonment are profound fears, and people really will mobilize themselves in many ways to avoid it, but having poor boundaries can be part of that. So
Sorry, a bit more than 4 minutes because I have to talk. Yes, fear of abandonment is huge for me personally. I don't know about you, chat. Yeah, no, Miss Amber, good luck I will talk to you, obviously. I will see you in all the places. And thank you so much for everything, for being my friend. Sweet dreams, darling. And we're here for you for your next experience with your motherfucking cunts hard tea employers. Thank you for being my friend, and thank you for being an amazing moderator and amazing support. Yes, thank you. Back to abandonment. Setting boundaries when you have a very lifelong pattern of people walking away is a terrifying thing. CEG, brave but scared. Truth revealed. Does any of this matter? So it's tricky. You tend to be like, what if they decide they don't like me and they leave? Well, then they're idiots and they're bye. That.
So if a person has those fears, I really struggle with being afraid of being rejected. I really struggle with the fear of abandonment. That becomes a wake-up call to say, and is this manifesting and is this playing out in how I set boundaries? Now, when we think about mental health and mental illness, poor boundaries play a role in a lot of presentations in mental health. We definitely see poor boundaries in a lot of, for example, personality disorders, which is a core interest of mine that I share on MedCircle all the time. We see it pretty much across the board in every form of personality disorder, not even just the antagonistic high conflict ones, but all of them. And some of it really reflects sort of the difficulties with intimacy and empathy that cut across all personality disorders. Either a person has absolutely extreme boundaries, or they have sort of intrusively strange boundaries, like we see, for example, in a schizotypal personality, where a person will come up to someone and do or say strange things to them. We definitely see struggles with boundaries and poor boundaries in personality issues like borderline personality, which tracks because there's a tremendous fear of abandonment. The entitlement we see in a narcissistic personality could definitely be associated with poor boundaries. We see it in psychopathy or antisocial personality, where a person might have poor boundaries to the degree that they engage in boundary violations for themselves or others to get what they need. We see it across more of the sort of anxious personality disorders. People with avoidant personalities often really have poor boundaries because they don't feel socially skilled and often feel that they have to give in to what other people want. And we see it what used to be called dependent personality. It's, again, on the fence if they're going to keep it. People feel like they have to give in and do things they don't want to so they won't be rejected. We also need to remember that poor boundaries cut across other mental health issues too. Sometimes it's a result of, for example, in a substance use disorder, we might see it as a function of sort of intoxication or impairment, or to be able to get drugs or alcohol. In an anxiety disorder, especially social anxiety, there may be poor boundaries because a person isn't even clear how to set them because they're so afraid of how they're going to get scrutinized. In a person with a mood disorder, there may be some poor boundaries around because of the apathy, because of sort of feeling like, oh, why is anyone going to want to spend time with me? And there are sort of behavioral theories of depression where the belief is that a lot of why a person is depressed is that they're not getting enough behavioral reinforcement from the environment and may not know how to do that. But I think we need to keep in mind one thing with poor boundaries. We often think of poor boundaries as the person having poor boundaries for themselves, agreeing to do too much, never saying no. But poor boundaries can manifest in another way. And that's a person violating other people's boundaries. And that's where we see, for example, in the high conflict personality styles, narcissism and antisocial personality being great examples of a person sort of reaching in to where they shouldn't, calling people at all hours, expecting things from people that are not realistic, interrupting their lives, asking them to do more and more and more, asking them inappropriate questions. That is a poor boundary where one person is violating another person's boundary. And I think that's an important part of the boundary conversation. Thanks for watching.
Don't forget
Dr.
to check
out my full series
We love
at
you, Dr. Ramani.
watch.medcircle.com.
Wiki knows. Bad timing. Oh, that was pretty cool. Hey, chat, we made it. Thank you so much for being here. Lol, that one, ducking. So, thank you, chat. No, that's not grand. Boundaries, super important. Start little. Start with the small things. We don't need to just like acquiesce in everything. We don't need to just be super easy going about everything. You can do it kindly. I always do things kindly. Firm, clear, reasonable, kindly articulated boundaries are super important. They'll make you and the other person feel better. If the other person doesn't appreciate it, well, it's a them problem. Invoice sent, Sav, you fucking sick bitch. I love that for you. Ahimsa, thank you for being here. I love that you were able to listen and be in and out of chat. That's all good. We don't mind. Not everybody has to be watching everybody has to be watching. Not everybody has to participate in chat for whatever reason. You're welcome, Britt. Thank you all for being here. Thank you, chat, for sharing your thoughts and your feelings, your experiences, supporting each other. You're a beautiful community. We are a beautiful community. I'm so proud of us. Quality, not quantity, right? Focusing on duty's call. I prefer to focus, but duty's call, Yes, adulting. Would not recommend. Highly overrated, but a necessary evil. So I hope you like how we got the songs now that we can break things up a little bit and the songs sound good. Thank you so much, Joey, for converting them into MP4s. I really appreciate you for so many things, and that's one of them. You're such a good friend. I love you very much. Shanwan says, I've got to, hi, gorgeous. I meant to say hi before, but I was either ranting or eating cheese or something. I've got to watch the first 2 hours. That's okay. We started about lunchtime for you, gorgeous. So, yeah. Experience, strength, and hope. Yes. Thank you, Maddie. Thank you for being here. Quality, 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 right, Pammy? What the fuck says, thank you so much for this. I learned so much. I needed to step back from chat and listen for this one. Love you. I love that. That's a what the fuck? What the fuck? You set a boundary for yourself. You realized that being in the chat, you weren't going to get as much out of this. So you set a boundary for yourself and said, you know what? No, I'm not going to do my normal chatting because this is important. This isn't just, blasphemy, but this isn't just Joe Sex Flex Takapina back. This is important stuff. I love that. That's a boundary. You set a boundary for yourself. Girl, wow. Love. Thank you, everybody, says Maiden. I really enjoyed the chat and the atmosphere. Amazing. I love that you feel safe here now. I know you were tentatively entering our chats a few weeks ago, Maiden, and it's beautiful to have you. Night all. Love you, Lisa. Thank you, Shelley. Love you too. Thank you for being here. Have a dab. She's like, fuck yeah, I'll have a dab. I'll have a couple. Thanks. Permission granted. There's a boundary. Enforced dabs. Candy says, thank you, Lisa, and beautiful shorties. Yes. Colors Flight. I love chat. We love you, Colors. And thank God you're here to keep us in line, remind us of security clearances, issue promotions. It's a whole thing. We couldn't do it without you. I wonder if Dr. Ramani would come on. Joe Flex, Dr. Ramani double bill would be epic. I mean, baby steps, Nick. Dr. Ramani has $1.87 million, probably 1.87 million followers, subscribers, and one day, if I can interview Turtle Boy, I can interview Dr. Ramani, right? Lol. Songs sound fucking fantastic. They do. So good. I love chat and colors. Listen, you two. Thank you, Lisa. Love you. Thank you, Ruthie. Love you. Gorgeous friend. Sex Flex. That's it. Sex Flex. Yes. I love chat and Nick. Oh my God. Jesus fuck. Laura says, I firmly inserted myself into chat now. What an awesome group. Love yous. Chat is bae. Literally. Baby steps. This. Yes. Hey, we're going to go out with, and I still haven't managed to affix it to the outro song, but Chat is bae. Very fitting. I'll see you all next weekend. We'll do a little bit more ASAP Rocky. I feel like that trial's going to wrap up this week. And so I guess we'll try to make one stream for that because I love this. Like I love that, but I love this. And I love you all very much. Thank you, mods. Thank you, friends. Love the music. Love your faces. Boom. Chat is bae. Okay, can we do this? Wait. Then I can't just press end stream because I got to do all stuff because you didn't organize it. Jesus. Okay. Wait. See if I can do this. Far out. No. Scroll the other way. The other way. First things first. Get rid of the roller skates. Hi. And there'll be no me becoming ASAP Rocky with this one. I can't turn into a roller skate now, can I? No, I hope not. Yikes. Mwah. Love you. Bye.
I love you all so very much. We had a blast just chatting and stuff. Things may have gone a bit off the rails. Professional when all else fails. 'Cause chat is babe, so much to say. Emotes and all the caps out. May have been cheese, bit faster please. The time has come, Camp Shorty out. We're skating through all the tough things, learning about this and that, defense motions, prosecution, and narcissistic twats. 'Cause chat is babe, so much to say. Emotes and all the all caps out. May have been cheese, bit faster please. The time has come, Camp Shorty out. Community, just you and me. Occasionally, Buster and Poppy. It's a whole thing, Miss Shorty swing. Together we make each other happy. 'Cause chat is babe.